2 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
To infinity and beyond.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
Live from the Play Show, yet not overly ostentatious studios of the Infinity Sports Network here in beautiful New York City, sitting on top of the 10th floor of 345 Hudson Street. Welcome on in to what is a Wednesday edition of the Zach Gelb Show across all of our great local Infinity Sports Network affiliates, Sirius XM, Channel 158, the free Odyssey app, and of course, streaming live on YouTube. 855-212-4227 is the number to jump on in, 855-212-4227. And you could always get at me on Instagram where I'm straight flexing, or via the good old cesspool of Twitter and X at Zach Gelb. That's ZACHGELB. Greg McElroy is going to stop by 20 minutes from now. We'll talk about the crazy day in college football and what's going to be happening this weekend. Chase Winovich, the former Michigan lineman and also NFL defensive end, is going to stop by at 4:20 p.m. Eastern, 1:20 p.m. Pacific today. And then I don't know how we book this guy each and every week. He is referred to as the world's biggest mush on my paper in front of me. That, of course, is Hot Take Hickey, Ryan Hickey, in studio at 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific time. So I did not think today, when I left the show yesterday, that we would be starting talking about a guy that was at UNLV and is now going to redshirt, and this be the biggest controversy that is brewing in college football right now. Matthew Sluka is his name, and he is, or was, the quarterback at UNLV. UNLV is off to an awesome start to their season. They have defeated Houston, Utah Tech, and Kansas, and they are 3-0. And their quarterback, who's a dual threat quarterback, who was the offensive player of the year in the Patriot League a season ago, is now redshirting the rest of the season because he claims, and his family claims, and his representatives claim, the NIL deal that he was promised is not being matched by the university, is not being kept in good faith. So their camp claims, through other reporters too, I saw On 3 had a really good article about this, that he was offered $100,000 to go to UNLV. And through this process, he has only been paid $3,000, and that's on a relocation fee. And whatever he was promised has not been the case, because now he's claiming that they haven't received payments from the university. So pretty much that's the gist of the family and the Sluka side of it. Now, this is a breaking story and a developing story, but UNLV has been silent all throughout the day. Because I do think when this story broke in the middle of the night, the first reaction was, oh, wow, how does this quarterback, because of money, bail on the team, and how can you quit on your teammates? That was the initial response. And this story happened in the middle of the night. But then as the day started to progress and we started to hear his side of it and his family started talking to reporters, it was like, man, this is dirty business by UNLV. And I understand there's a lot of ambiguity with NIL, and this is something that I think it's good that the players are getting paid, but there's no control of this. There's no policing of this. And there are a lot of schools that say they're going to give a player something and then don't. And there's also a lot of players that make a commitment, and then once they get their guaranteed money, they bail to go to other places because they get more money in future years by going to other places and so on and so on. So there's a lot of Wild West feel to this and a lot of unknown that does go on that could create problems like this. But as the day did go on, it seemed like people started to change their tune, where at first it was bash the kid for quitting on his team. You know, UNLV, they're 3-0. They're undefeated, had 2 big wins up against Houston and Kansas. And now all of a sudden, the tone changed to, hey, it looked like UNLV, a coach on their staff, promised them a certain amount of money. Now, this was all verbally. It wasn't in writing. But this was done verbally. And then the kid shows up. And his dad's saying, they kept on saying, oh, we're deferring, and you don't get the money. Well, you still had these 3 weeks that could go by where you could play, but if you end up playing in their next game up against Fresno State, you then burn your red shirt, and he can't play college football and make money in the future while playing college football. So I think a lot of people through the day started to have sympathy and thought UNLV was doing this kid dirty. But UNLV just released a statement, and take it for whatever it's worth. And the statement is, football player Matthew Sluka's representation made financial demands upon the university and its NIL collective in order to continue playing. UNLV Athletics interpreted these demands as a violation of the NCAA pay-for-play rules, as well as the Nevada state law. UNLV does not engage in such activity, nor does it respond to implied threats. UNLV has honored all previously agreed upon scholarship for Matthew Sluka, and UNLV has conducted its due diligence and will continue to operate its program within the framework of NCAA rules and regulations, as well as Nevada state laws. So I read that statement, and this is how I interpret it. I interpret that statement basically, UNLV is claiming whatever they agreed upon to, they have paid him that, or they have met their agreement so far. But after a 3-0 start, UNLV playing well, Sluka being the face of the offense with what he could do and his dual threat abilities, that he asked for more money, which would basically be like an NFL holdout now. Hey, I want you to tear up my contract. I want you to pay me this, or else I'm not going to play. But those situations usually happen in the offseason. They don't usually happen in season when you've already played 3 games. So I don't know which side to take on this one. I don't know who's in the right or who's in the wrong. But I texted Samter this morning when, I saw that this story was brewing, and I said either 3 things happened. And I don't know what ended up happening, but there's 3 possibilities. either the initial NIL commitment was not matched and was not met. That's number one. And if that's the case, that an assistant coach on this staff said, hey, we'll get you $80,000, we'll get you $100,000. Just come here, take our word. Even though you got to get this stuff in writing and there's all rules and limitations and the school can't do this, the school can't do that. But we all know that even though this is the legal way, there's still illegal things that happen that we kind of just gloss over because we know that now it's legal for players to get paid. But either this coach, one of the assistant coaches, made a promise to the kid and the kid took him for his word. He showed up and it was, hey, yeah, don't worry. We'll pay you in a few weeks. Oh, don't worry. We'll pay you at the end of the month. I'll pay you in 2 months. If that happened, then shame on UNLV. But the other two possibilities are what UNLV is claiming, or it sounds like they're claiming, that, hey, this guy's off to a 3-0 start. He probably realizes that he doesn't have much of an NFL future, if at any at all. And this is his prime time to earn as much money as possible and benefit off his name, image, and likeness and say, guys, what was the agreement now changes because maybe agents got to him or family got to him. My price and my worth in college football is more than I could have expected from where I was when I was at Holy Cross a year ago to now where I am at UNLV after a 3-0 start. And if that's the case, I will never fault a player for trying to earn as much as possible, but you have to honor your commitment. If your commitment, and let me once again reiterate that, if your commitment was being met by the university, if after 3 games you think, hey, I'm going to basically hold you hostage, you either pay me more money or I'm not going to play for the rest of the year, if that's how it did go down, then the kid's in the wrong. And then the other thing that could happen, and this has been talked about a lot by college coaches at smaller schools, not big dog schools, because big dog schools do this all the time. But we have heard, right, whether it's from a Spencer Danielson or Jason Candle talking about the Boise State and the Toledo coach, where they have made kind of references and they have alluded to the fact that some of their players that are on their roster have been tampered with. And this is something that could happen. And I think this is the least likely of the scenario that this naturally occurred, where this kid's off to a 3-0 start. And let me just throw out a school for a random sake. And let's just say Baylor was impressed with this kid. And maybe Baylor hit up this kid's representation and said, hey, utilize your red shirt, skip out on the rest of the season, and we'll give you a fat NIL deal if you still have your eligibility a year from now. And there's a lot of tampering, since this is the Wild Wild West, that goes on behind the scenes. So could it be a little mixture of, let's say, 1-3 or 2-3? Yeah. Like, there's a chance that his NIL commitment wasn't being matched by the university and met by the university, and then the kid started talking to other schools. Or there's a chance that after a hot start, right, his representation went to the people in charge of NIL with the collective and said, hey, we want more money. And then once the collective told him to go pound sand, maybe the agent or the representation started talking to other schools and they got a promise. But to me, what naturally occurred, and the big question of what naturally occurred, was the school paying what they promised him, or the collective were they paying what they promised him? And did this quarterback end up asking for more money after the 3-0 start? And when he was told no, did it go down, okay, I'm going to present the story my way, even though it happened a different way? So there's a lot to wait and see. Still, I do believe that it's good that players are getting paid. But when you can't police this, and there's no governing body here, and you allow this to be very vague, there's going to be a lot of speed bumps like this. And this isn't going to be the last time this is going to happen, because these schools will take advantage of kids and make promises that they don't keep. And then kids, as now you enter the professional world now, which is college athletics, they will give their word, and then they will think that they have more worth and more value if they play very well, and then they'll try to renegotiate their deal. So this is an ugly, ugly situation where there's no winners here, because now UNLV doesn't have their quarterback. I know they have other talented options on the roster, And this kid's now going to sit out the rest of the year, and we'll see what his future has in store and where he'll go next. It is the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network, 855-212-4227, 855-212-4227. We'll take a timeout. We'll talk to one of the best voices in college football right now. That is the former Alabama quarterback, Greg McElroy. He will join us on the other side when we return in 5 minutes. He does a great job on Jocks FM and also calling all the big games throughout the year for college football when it comes to ESPN and ABC. But first, football is back, and what better way to celebrate than winning some cash with Sleeper Picks? Sleeper Picks is a fantasy game, but you could win real money. Just pick more or less than at least 2 player stats, and if your picks are right, you win. You can pick up to 8 players to win up to 100 times your money, and Sleeper has a couple huge offers to kickstart the football season. For new users, Sleeper will match your first deposit with up to $100 credit to your account. If you've already played, Sleeper's got discounted player projections for you every week of the season. So download the Sleeper app now and use promo code SCORE, and your first deposit will be doubled with a credit up to $100. What are you waiting for? Download Sleeper today and use code SCORE, that's SCORE, for a credit up to $100 match on your first deposit. That's code SCORE. Must be 18 years in most states and in state where it is legal. Promo code and other restrictions apply. Visit sleeper.com. Please wager responsibly. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-426-2537 for help. Paid for by Blitz Studios.
You're in a 4-minute break. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. .30 seconds remaining. 15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Alrighty, rock and rolling. It is the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. We'll head out to the guest line right now and talk to one of our favorite people when it comes to college football, and that's Greg McElroy. You can hear him on Jocks FM in the morning, and then you can see him on your TV everywhere, SEC Network, ESPN, ABC, doing all the analysis and calling all the big games, and he's kind enough to join us right now. Greg, appreciate the time. How you been?
Good, man. Appreciate you having me. Big week for college football.
Yeah, I didn't think my first question to you would be something other than Alabama and Georgia related, but this Matthew Sluka story is really crazy. It's a he said type of situation, but it looks like right now he was promised something in terms of NIL from UNLV, and I guess he wasn't getting those payments, and now he's going to redshirt and sit out the season. So as a former college quarterback who didn't play in the NIL era, though, how do you kind of process this crazy one?
Well, I think it'd be nice to kind of get transparency. That's the key. I feel like this is all right now. He said, she said. Matthew Sluka's dad is out there saying that he wasn't paid. They're saying that his living expenses weren't covered. Meanwhile, sources within the UNLV program say that every single payment was met. And that Matthew demanded more money after the bye week and the win against Kansas. So, I don't know how to see it. I know it's not ever a good look in college football to see things like this going down. It deflects attention away from the sport. And there's a lot of great stories in the sport. But I don't know who to believe. I don't know what's true. I don't know what's not. All I know is that leaving after 4 games is never a good look. And not necessarily fulfilling payments if there were obligations made and they weren't. That's not a good look either. So I feel like this all could end pretty quickly. All you have to do if you're the Sluka family, you just have to say, hey, look, here's the bank statement right here, right in front of you. No money coming in, and we'd be good. And if you're UNLV and you're trying to prove your side of the equation, all right, here's the bank statement. Here's the money that was entered into your account via direct deposit from our collective, and you're good. So I feel like this could all be cleaned up pretty quickly, and I don't feel like it should be that difficult to just present some evidence of whether there was wrongdoing or whether or not thing was on the up and up.
What needs to change in college football? Obviously, I'm all in favor of players getting paid, but it's the wild, wild west on both sides, and there's really no governing body here that could really control this system.
Yeah, I don't think anybody has a problem with players being paid. I mean, if you do, then you need to look in the mirror. Like, it's just not that big a deal. Like, I think if anyone were to have a problem with players being paid, it'd be us as former players that didn't get paid. Like we did it, a certain way. Like, I don't care. Like, the world's changed. And guess what? Like, my kids have to wear seatbelts and my parents didn't have to. Like, things change. Like, things adjust in the world and rules change and things like that. And it's great that they can now hopefully get a head start financially for having played college football. It's awesome. What I would also say to this is it's pretty simple, I think, but we need to figure out who's going to police what's going on. If you can get transparency in what these guys are getting, that'd be huge. Like, it's not like there's a mystery how much Joe Burrow's making by the Cincinnati Bengals. There's not a mystery about the Herbert contract extension with the Chargers or what Trevor Lawrence is making with the Jaguars. Like, everybody knows what they're making. And right now, it's basically a website that says what your NIL value is. And most of the time that website is pretty significantly inflated. So I don't know what to make of it. I know that it's pay for play, which I'm fine with, but I also think it'd be helpful to know what the market demands are for said position, because it'd be impossible for CeeDee Lamb to go to the table and demand money from Jerry Jones if he didn't know what the next highest paid wide receiver was. So I think transparency would be huge. You also have to figure out who's going to enforce it. Is it the conference level? Is there going to be some type of national body outside of the NCAA that enforces it? And then I think you need to do a really good job of cracking down on people that are misleading the player. That might be teams in some cases where they are enticing a player through a third party to enter the portal so that they can transfer. We call it tampering. Obviously, it's a huge penalty in the NFL. It should be in college as well. And then we also need to make sure that there are extra layers that the representation has to go through, the agents, to make sure that they are capable and qualified of representing players. Because right now, there's a lot of guys that have no qualifications that are bad actors and that are trying to get their cut when they aren't necessarily always operating on the player's best interest. So that's also an issue as well.
Greg McElroy here with us. Get into Alabama, Georgia. Both teams were on a bye week leading into this one. I'll take you back to the last time we saw Georgia. They only won the football game by 1 point up against Kentucky. Hey, that happens even with all great teams. But did you see some concerns from that game that are maybe a bigger issue for the Georgia program moving forward?
Concerns is probably not the right word to use. I think that there are things that are very much a work in progress. I'm not worried about it because it hasn't become a trend yet. I think a concern is when it happens once and then it happens again and then it happens again. At this point, they're all it's the anomaly performance. So I wouldn't go as far as to say I'm concerned just yet, but I do think that there are areas where they can grow mightily. I don't think the protection has been super elite this year along the offensive line. They're going to be without one of their best players, their right guard, Tate Ratledge. He got hurt in the Kentucky game. I think Carson Beck has missed more throws and missed more opportunities this year than I can remember down the stretch in 23, excuse me. So that's of concern. There were a couple times in the Kentucky game where guys were running open and he just didn't cut it loose. He was maybe seeing ghosts, or maybe he was a little fooled by the coverage and what they did pre-snap and what they ended up in post-snap. But there were guys open and he didn't cut it loose. So that's of concern. But ultimately, I look at that game too, and there was a moment down the stretch where Georgia's back was against the wall. They were up one, playing 4-minute offense, try to take the air out of the football. And they decided to call heavy play action and rip a corner into a really tight window, and Carson Beck made that throw look really easy. So with the game on the line, after you've played really poorly for 55 minutes, to pull off that throw, I'm not so worried about Carson Beck. Like, he's going to be fine. And then defensively, they were a little banged up along the defensive line. So if they can get healthy, that'll be huge, because I do think their depth was challenged against Tennessee more so than it's been in recent years.
Which quarterback, I know both have pressure on them, but between Jalen Milroe and then also Carson Beck for Saturday's contest, which quarterback do you think has more pressure on them?
Probably Carson Beck, more pressure. One, it's on the road. Two, they lost to Alabama last year, so this has been one that's been circled all off season. Three, I think he has more to lose. I mean, Carson Beck was the odds-on favorite to be the number one overall pick in the 2025 draft. Whereas Jalen, at this point, I don't know what his draft prospects are. I think Kuiper had him as like the number 5 quarterback. I don't know where that lands you. But I think Carson Beck is number 1, and in all likelihood, a top 2 pick in next year's draft, depending on who comes off the board and who's picking first. So it's going to be very interesting, I think, to watch Carson Beck to respond to some adversity, because he did not have many challenges last year. He played pretty dang well pretty much all season. And then the one game they didn't play very well was against Bama, but they had 2-3 weeks to regroup before they played Florida State in the bowl game. So this is kind of an immediate bounce back off the bye week after poor performance. So it's a little bit shorter, but I'm pretty optimistic that we're going to see the best version of Carson Beck on Saturday.
When we look at this game, Greg McElroy, I actually had Georgia against Alabama in the national championship game. I was higher than most on Alabama going into this year, which is bizarre to say, but now we're in the post-Saban era. But for Saturday, I kind of feel like Alabama's going to win the game, and then Georgia will get their revenge later in the season. Where are you at on this one right now?
Yeah, I lean Bama. It's in large part due to a few things. One, I think Bama's a really dynamic offense. I think they're a little more balanced than Georgia. Georgia's really a pass-first attack. I think they have good backs, but they're a little bit more one-dimensional. Bama, with their quarterback run, complemented with big plays, makes them, I think, a little bit tougher to defend at this point. I'm still not sure at this point for Georgia, like who's the go-to guy in the passing game. There have been moments where you think it's a guy and then it's not. And I think they are missing Brock Bowers a little bit, that weapon that would really win any matchup and that could take over the game at any moment. And then defensively, we've already talked a little bit about some of the question marks along the defensive line. I think Bama's better along the offensive line. So I think Bama just has a bunch of advantages in this game. I still think it'll go down the wire, and I expect it to be pretty high scoring because Bama does have some youth in the secondary and some inexperience back there. So I expect Carson Beck to get his and to create a couple big plays. But in what I think is a high scoring game, I lean towards the home team, and that would be the Tide.
Before we let you run, just a few more quick hitters with Greg McElroy. Who do you think is a better team? Because both of these teams have impressed the first few weeks of the season. Is it Tennessee or is it Ole Miss?
Tennessee. It's close, I think, on the ceiling, but Tennessee's been challenged. It's hard to kind of gauge where Ole Miss is at right now because they haven't played anybody. Now this week they'll play Kentucky, who I think matches up pretty well against Ole Miss. Like they have good defensive linemen, they have pros, they have first round picks on this team for Kentucky. So I think they have quality pieces, and this will be really the first opportunity we get to evaluate how much Ole Miss has improved along the line of scrimmage offensively and defensively. They've always had weapons. They've always had quarterbacks. They've always had good perimeter skill, but they haven't always had game-changing defensive and offensive linemen. They feel like they've done that this year. So this will be the first chance to really evaluate that. But I look at it, and you want to go tail of the tape. Like quarterback, I lean Ole Miss heavily right now. I think Jackson Dart's way further ahead than Nico, but that's to be expected. Running back, it's kind of a toss-up. I think Sampson and Henry Parrish are awesome. Wide receiver, I lean slight towards Ole Miss. Slight, though. Very, very slight. Offensive line, I lean towards Tennessee. Defensive line, I lean towards Tennessee. Linebackers, lean towards Tennessee. And then secondary, bit of a toss-up, probably slight lean towards Ole Miss at the moment. So tail of the tape, I think defensively in the front seven, you really like Tennessee. And then offensively with their skill, you really like Ole Miss. So I think it'd actually be a great matchup if they played each other, to be honest with you. I think these teams match up pretty well against each other and be a fascinating showing.
Staying in the SEC, which is still bizarre to say with Texas now in the SEC along with Oklahoma. We've seen a little Arch Manning this year. Obviously made his first start last week with Quinn Ewers being banged up. What do you think Arch Manning will become with the hype and then what also you've seen from him in the small doses so far?
Well, I mean, I think he looks pretty. He's obviously very talented. We know that. The ball placement's pretty dang good for a freshman. We've seen athleticism that I don't think a lot of people anticipated, but I was not shocked by it. I knew this was a guy that could run if necessary. And I also seen a guy that's made some freshman mistakes, which, by the way, welcome to college football. It's hard. Right. Like, these guys are good. So those that have said, this guy's going to be the greatest thing since sliced bread, I don't know if I'm willing to go that far just yet. I think he has all the tools to become an elite player, but he's still young, and we need to treat him as such. And to anticipate him being the best quarterback in the country here, one start into his college career, you're probably going to be a little misled. So I'm glad that Quinn is going to be back at some point here very soon, because I don't think that Arch is 100% ready to be the every down guy for the national championship favorite at the moment. But I do think his time is coming. And man, I don't think many players could play at a real high level as a redshirt freshman. There's just not that many. He hasn't had a lot of game action. So I've been super optimistic with what I've seen. I still think there's things to iron out and things to improve. But so far it's been, rock solid B+ performances from Arch in the last two games.
When we get to Billy Napier at Florida, Greg McElroy, it's not a matter of if he's going to get fired, in my opinion. It's just when. The big question right now around college football, would Lane Kiffin leave Ole Miss for Florida? How do you respond to that if that opportunity presents itself?
I mean, he's making a lot of money. He's making, I think his most recent contract got him to $9 million and change, which I'm not sure exactly where that falls on the pecking order of top college football coaches, but I think he's in the top 10. I think Florida's a tricky job, man. Like, I think it's a really good place and you can win big there and the ceiling's crazy high. But along with it comes an expectation that you never lose and you never play bad and you score a lot. So I think the Florida job is a tough one. I mean, I've seen good coaches go there and not win enough to maintain their job status, even though they'd won like 65% of their games. Like, it's a tough spot. So, because they not only expect you to just win, but they expect you to win a certain way by scoring a lot of points and being entertaining in the process. So I think it's a very tough spot to be in. If I were to handicap it, I think it's a 50-50 that he would consider it, but that's Lane for you. Like, it was 50-50 with him and Auburn a couple years ago. And he decided at the 11th hour, hey, I'm staying.
A lot of drama, and it will come right down to the end, right?
It always does, like with him. Like, I think he likes to be recruited. I think he likes to be considered. Like, he likes to be in the public eye, but I also think he's really happy in Oxford. So it wouldn't shock me at all if he entertained it all the way to the end and then ultimately decided to stay.
Before I let you run, if your Heisman ballot was due tomorrow, which it's not, I was talking about this the other day, the 3 names that would be on my ballot would be Travis Hunter, Ashton Genty, and Cam Ward, in no order. But who would be your 3 names? Just wondering with what you've seen so far.
Yeah, it's 3 good ones. Genty is awesome at Boise. He is a great player. He is really fun to watch. So he would certainly be in the mix for me. I always like to consider a defensive player, but I'm trying to think if there's one that's really popped this year so far. I don't know if I'd put a defensive player on just yet. I mean, I look at Hunter, and I view him more through the lens of a receiver. I know he's had an interception. I know he's had a forced fumble. I see him more as a receiver than I do as a defensive back. So I guess he could qualify as a defensive player if you looked at him that way. I think he's definitely one of the best players. I don't know if he's going to have enough juice to maintain all the way through the end to be considered amongst the Heisman hopefuls, because I don't think his team's going to win a lot of games moving forward. I mean, they're a 2-touchdown dog at UCF who, might be a top 5 team in the Big 12, but I don't know. I don't know where they're going to ultimately end up. So he's a good one that I think will be considered by most. Try to think. I mean, Cam Ward's an obvious one with what he's accomplished already so far. I still wouldn't rule out Jackson Dart at Ole Miss, Carson Beck at Georgia. Milroe's going to be in the mix, because the way these things usually go, Zach, like, it's
down to the wire.
It's almost irritating. It's like, who's the most famous player on the best team and has their team in position to win, a national championship? It seldom goes to the best player. It really almost always goes to the quarterback of one of the top 6 teams. And that might be frustrating for some. That might be cool with others. To me, it's frustrating because I think there's a lot of great players that don't really get a lot of consideration because they don't play for the right team.
He's Greg McElroy. Greg, appreciate the time as always. Thanks for the insight.
Appreciate it, buddy.
We'll continue the college football conversation. We come on back. We have another team joining the Pac-12. Is another team going to follow Utah State? You'll have to wait and see. Also, with that being said, can the Pac-12, who got stripped of their power conference status, can they make their way back into being viewed as a power conference once again? We'll get into that on the other side. Update time first, though. Here is the Act Man, Rich Ackerman.
Infinity Sports Network Sports Flash.
And it's sponsored by Progressive Insurance. Protect your home and auto. Save when you bundle. Get a quote at Progressive.com. The Cardinals will have to go the rest of the way without Justin Jones. The defensive lineman suffered a torn tricep and is done for the year after starting the first 3 games. Broncos linebacker Alex Singleton tore his ACL and is also out for the season. Keenan Allen back at practice for the Bears after missing 2 games with a heel injury, while Chargers quarterback Justin Herbert is doing some things, according to reports, at Chargers practice. The Giants have ruled out corners Drew Phillips and Adoree Jackson for tomorrow's matchup against the Cowboys. The Mariners are 2.5 games back in the wild card race and right now trail the Astros 1-0 in the bottom of the 5th, while the Tigers and Royals hold the final wild cards. Detroit will host Tampa Bay, while Kansas City faces the Nationals in Washington tonight. The Diamondbacks were great in July and August, but much different lately. Just 5-7 over their last 12. They host the Giants, looking to halt the 3-game slide. That leaves them just a half game up on the Braves for the final final wild card in the NL. The Braves, weather permitting, will host the Mets tonight. I'm Rich Ackerman.
Hey, like us on Facebook. Our handle is INF Sportsnet. That's INF Sportsnet for our Facebook page. This is the Infinity Sports Network.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. 30 seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Welcome back to the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network.
It's time to Ask the Pros, where you, the listener, gets to ask us a question. It's brought to you by O'Reilly Auto Parts. Simply tweet your question at INF Sportsnet or at Zach Gelb, ZACHGELB, using the hashtag Ask the Pros. Be listening later in the show. We might answer your question. Think O'Reilly Auto Parts for all your car care needs. Get guaranteed low prices and excellent customer service from the professional parts people at O'Reilly Auto Parts. I will delve into the future of the Pac-12 in just a bit, but we opened up the show talking about the Matthew Sluka situation, and he is now going to redshirt at UNLV, and it's over a discrepancy in terms of NIL payment. He said he was told, and it was all verbally, it wasn't in writing, hey, $100,000 he was going to get for NIL, and I think that what UNLV was trying to do was only give him like $88,000 less than that. UNLV comes out and basically, I think they accused is the best way to kind of look back at this, him of trying to renegotiate that NIL deal and say that he wanted more money is the way that I read that statement pretty much, and what they were inferring after their red-hot 3-0 start. So it's a mess in college football. But I will say, I know some people have the take, see, this is why college football is a disaster. This is going to be the death of college football. You could acknowledge that there's a problem in college football and also not be a knucklehead and be so stupid enough to think that college football is going to die. Like, football survives everything. We've seen disgusting things go on in NFL and college football, and guess what? Whether it's Saturday or Sunday, those buildings are packed. People are dedicated to football like no other sport and passionate about football like no other sport. I watch college football each and every weekend. It's not like because the players are now getting paid, all of a sudden do I say, even though they, you have a bunch of different players on teams and it's tough to develop the smaller programs, do I sit back and go, man, college football's ruined? I watch the college football product. I still think it's as strong as ever. 855-212-4227, 855-212-4227. Let's say hello to Mark in Ohio wants to talk about this. Mark, what's going on?
Hey, how you doing, Zach?
Doing great, Mark.
Zach, everyone saying that there needs to be a governing body over college football is just not using their head. I mean, every industry in the country goes through this. I don't know how many times I've done something and not been paid. Okay. And I got to have a contract, and I got to go get an attorney. That quarterback, he could just go get an attorney and keep playing the rest of the year. If he's got a contract that says he was supposed to be paid, he'll be paid. Plus, they'll have to compensate for his attorney fees, all court costs, things like that. And on the other end, I've paid mechanics up front to do a job, and I told them, hey, once they got the money, they didn't do the job. And it's like, all I had to do is say, I'm going to sue you if you don't get the job done. And
so here's my problem, Mark. My problem is I just wish the coaches could actually have legal contact about this. That's my biggest issue. We all know the coaches are the ones through the collective that are giving the okay or determining how much money they should allocate to a player. But it's such a stupid game that the NCAA does where they're like, okay, we'll open up Pandora's box, but the coaches really aren't allowed to have involvement. Like, for example, we're in different lines of work, but if I had an issue with my contract, number one, I'm probably calling my agent, but I at least know who I could go talk to in a legal way that could rectify the situation. In this case, it's a bunch of promises that are being made by the people from the collective, and we don't really know the details of what the promises are and what the T's are that need to be crossed and the I's that need to be dotted so we could actually formulate a contract. That, to me, is my biggest issue.
I hear what you're saying, and that's for a player to know. And us, the public, we don't really need to know that. Like, we like knowing it about professional athletes, but as the public, we don't need to know that. It just needs to be in writing so that, I wish that I had a parent or someone who mentored me as a youth and told me, make sure you get it in writing.
Yeah.
And I could have saved myself a lot of trouble growing up. But that's all these young men really need, is just someone who makes sure that they're getting things in writing and that it's all laid out there. And then if it's not, they take it to any attorney, this contract, like you were saying earlier, these bank statements, and the attorney's going to say, yeah, I'll work for free until we get this, because they'll know whether or not they're going to win or not.
Yeah, well, Mark, I appreciate the phone call. Thanks so much. The difficult part about this one is if he plays in the game, which he's not now, then his eligibility is done with. Like, he can't then go to another school the following year and then get whatever the price is to go make that money. Now, you could eventually get compensated by that in the legal system, but what happens if you think you're going to win a case and then you don't end up winning this case? Because all of this is so vague and it's extremely ambiguous of what is allowed and what isn't allowed and who you talk to. And there's been situations before where schools have had infractions brought upon them because they drove a kid to a collective and to the people running the collective, even though they weren't the ones that were basically saying, okay, you're going to get X, Y, and Z in terms of the dollars. There's a lot that we don't know because this is new. But the NCAA has ripped the Band-Aid off begrudgingly with this, so we shouldn't keep on putting up roadblocks here that makes it very confusing to explain and also talk about. All righty, let me get into the Pac-12. So we knew that it was the Tupac, right, with Washington State and Oregon State. Then we found out there was a six-pack with those two schools getting joined the other week by Boise State, Fresno State, Colorado State, and San Diego State to eventually have this new Pac-12. Well, the other day, we found out that you're going to have Utah State also joining the Pac-12. And I saw that Roger Sherman put out there that UNLV committed to the Mountain West last week, but is reconsidering. This is another UNLV story today. UNLV's getting a lot of run today. UNLV committed to the Mountain West last week, but is reconsidering and might go to the Pac-12 because Utah State changed their mind. Also, the two leagues are suing each other. Obviously, the problem with college football is players making rash, selfish decisions based on money, though, which is a perfectly timed tweet because, right, it was also Florida State and Clemson suing the conference. They wanted more piece of the pie in the ACC. Now it seems like Florida State and Clemson also going to stay in the ACC. And then you had this situation with UNLV and also Utah State. So I'm just wondering what the end goal is for the Pac-12. Because if you think the Pac-12, just the brand coming back with 8 schools to compete when eventually they get the 8 schools in Division I college football, that's not going to be true. We're not going to view the Pac-12 with, let's say they get UNLV, with Washington State, Oregon State, Boise State, Fresno State, Colorado State, San Diego State, Utah State, and UNLV. We're not going to view that as a power conference. You're just not. You're not going to view them, say what you want about the ACC or the Big 12, you're not even going to view them even close to being on the same playing field as the ACC and the Big 12, let alone the two premier conferences in college football in the SEC and the Big 10. But I think the new goal of this Pac-12 is to be the conference that gets the first opportunity by the committee each and every year, if assuming the college football playoff for the foreseeable future stays at 12 teams. Inevitably, I do think it will expand, and I won't be happy with it. But to get that 5th conference spot. Because right now we know the 4 highest-ranked conference champions each and every year are going to be SEC, whoever wins that, Big 10, whoever wins that, Big 12, whoever wins that, in the ACC. Those are going to be your buys. But there is still one spot reserved for the smaller guy, and that now is the job and the duty of the Pac-12 to formulate a conference that they're going to get plucked to be one of those 5 spots that are reserved for conference champions. But it's not an automatic lock that it's going to be this version of the Pac-12 because the American Athletic Conference still has some viable schools that the Pac-12 was interested in, like the Memphises of the world, the Tulanes of the world, and a few other schools. And those schools elected to stay in the American Athletic Conference. So I don't think the Pac-12 will ever be viewed again as a power conference, but it has to be the best non-power conference. And we'll see if they're going to be able to do that. And I'm usually a defender of the little guy in college football, right? I went to Temple University. We're on in Boise, and I love the Boise State program, and they've been a dominant program for so many years. But it is really tough to operate in college football right now with a perceived have-not program for those schools that are in the have-not conferences. Because, like, when I was at Temple, I saw players like Deion Dawkins, P.J. Walker, Hassan Reddick, Tyler Medikevich, Matt Ioannidis, Robbie Anderson, who's now called Robbie Chosen. Like, I saw a lot of guys develop and go on to have professional careers and get drafted very high, and some of these guys make Pro Bowls and get millions and millions of dollars in contracts. But if they were operating in the transfer portal era now, or the name, image, and likeness era now, the moment that another bigger school came calling, they would have left, and who knows if that's in the best interest of the kid. Now, ultimately, it's up to the kid to have the freedom to choose and make a decision, and sometimes in college you make the right decision, sometimes you make the wrong decision. But we could see upsets like Northern Illinois find a way to take down Notre Dame. Sorry to bring that up once again, Stu. Where the little guy beats the big guy program. But to continue to develop the little guy program, some schools will be able to do it, but most won't be able to. Because right when you start to get a player that's good for a year or two, they'll end up getting plucked by another school. Not everyone could be like Boise State, where you have an Ashton Genty and you have a special player like Ashton Genty who basically told all the other big schools that were going for him, nah, I'm not going to go there. I'm going to be loyal to my school. That's a rarity. But you could still find a path in college football, and for this new version of the Pac-12, and we'll see who else they add, now having 7 schools for football, it's to be the best of the have-not conferences in college football, so you could still get into the college football playoff, and then just getting into the college football playoff would be viewed as a tremendously successful season for your program. All right, this is Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. Chase Winovich going to join us 25 minutes from now. Ryan Hickey will join us in studio at 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific time. But when we come on back in 5 minutes, it is a Take 5 Wednesday. I'll give you my top 5 teams in the NFL and college football.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. 2 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Infinity and beyond.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
Yo, it is the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network, hour number 2 of our radio program. Chase Winovich is going to stop by 20 minutes from now, the former defensive end at Michigan and also played in the NFL. Remember him with the Patriots and also the Cleveland Browns as well. So we'll talk to Chase Winovich coming up 20 minutes from now. Ryan Hickey, I take Hickey, will join us in studio coming up an hour from now. And Stu, I'm mad at Hickey. Really mad at Hickey.
Oh, I know you are.
Because you overheard a conversation between Hickey and I on Monday.
Yep.
When I saw Hickey and I said, where are you at with the Mets? And he said they're going into Atlanta and they're going to sweep the Braves. And I said to Hickey, do me a favor. Let's just pretend like I didn't hear those comments and keep your fat mouth shut when it comes to my teams. Because it's one thing if you want to mush your own teams that are the teams that I don't root for. But when we share a common team, we should be on the same team and realize your power that you have. And the moment where Hickey said the Mets are going to sweep the Braves, I knew that they were screwed and they weren't going to sweep the Braves. The Mets got blown out last night in Atlanta. We don't know with the hurricane. We hope everyone's going to be okay. If the rest of this series is going to get in, I guess they're going to try to play tonight. But it looks like tomorrow is going to be washed out, which could create a very complicated situation for Major League Baseball because you have these wild card spots with the Diamondbacks, the Mets, and the Braves. Right, the Padres in all likelihood get in, and then those last 2 spots are up for grabs. This could create maybe a doubleheader with the Mets in Atlanta if this gets washed out tonight and tomorrow, they still have to play one of those games and it matters, it could create, a doubleheader or even a one-game situation that needs to be played on Monday, and the postseason, I believe, is supposed to start on Wednesday. So this whole thing could be funky. But the moment when Hickey said that, I said, okay, I'm giving you your one get-out-of-jail-free card. I'm going to pretend like my ears were clogged and filled up with wax and I couldn't hear that. But I got a few DMs last night from loyal listeners on Instagram, and they said, oh no. They said, Hickey has done it again. And those messages were from listeners that were listening to the JR Sport Brief extravaganza. And I guess last night Hickey was running his mouth saying, I'm really confident about the Mets. Really confident. And geez Louise, whenever he says the Mets are really confident, and he's really confident in the Mets, we know what happens. Stu, I just hope they win a game in Atlanta. That's all I'm going to say. I hope they win a game.
Yeah, so much for that sweep, because you knew as soon as he said that, it wasn't going to happen. You and me both looked at each other, and we both knew, like,
you laughed.
Because I knew exactly where this was going.
You didn't have to look at me. You knew where my anger was going to be. And he did the same thing a few years ago with the Rangers.
Yes, I was just thinking the same thing. He did that with the Rangers, where he guaranteed, yep.
Where he's like, I'm reserving my spot at the Canyon of Heroes for a parade. When the Rangers are up 2-0 in the Eastern Conference Final against the Tampa Bay Lightning. And they didn't win another damn game. And I told him, just please, keep my team's name out your bleeping mouth. That's what I told him. And that punk just can't listen. All righty. It is a Take 5 Wednesday. I'll give you my top 5 teams in college football in the NFL right now.
As the dust settles from last week's games, it's time to look at which teams are rising and which are falling.
And there's an interception.
Zach ranks his top 5 NFL and college football teams on this week's edition of Take 5, only on the Zach Gelb Show.
Alrighty, I'm going to be boring to start, Stu, and I'm usually not a boring talk show host, but I'm going to go college first because nothing has changed from last week. So I'll go 5-1 here. In at number 5, Tennessee, good old Rocky Top. They continue to roll. Their defense was the most impressive part to me in their performance up against Oklahoma. Great win for Josh Heupel, going back to Norman and finding a way to beat the Oklahoma Sooners, a place where he won a national championship and then also was fired eventually as their offensive coordinator. So I do put Tennessee in at 5. In at number 4, it's Alabama. Alabama was my pick before the year started to get to the national championship game before they lost to Georgia. We will see how their contest does play out this weekend, as Alabama in Tuscaloosa does welcome in the Georgia Bulldogs. Alabama was off last week. In at number 3, Ohio State. We're going to see what happens when they pick up the intensity on their schedule a little bit, but they have some of the best talent in the country, as you know. Georgia was in at 2. Didn't love their performance up against Kentucky. They were on a bye week this past week, but they did find a way to win that game up against Kentucky, and now we're going to see what Georgia's really made out of when they look for revenge from the SEC championship game loss a year ago, where they did lose to Alabama, which was Nick Saban's final SEC championship game, and Alabama won. So we'll see if Georgia gets that revenge on Saturday. And in at number 1, it is the Texas Longhorns. No Quinn Ewers, no problem for now. We know that Texas's schedule gets better and better as the season does go on. But that performance up against Michigan looks even more dominant now because some people are praising USC, and we know Michigan beat USC, and Texas obviously stomped Michigan a few weeks ago. So Texas in at 1, Georgia in at 2, Ohio State in at 3, Alabama in at 4, Tennessee, good old Rocket Top, in at number 5. Stu Kovacs, speak now or forever hold your peace.
What about the Miami Hurricanes with Cam Ward, who many think is the Heisman favorite at quarterback?
Yeah, right now, I would think either, as I said to Greg McElroy, Ashton Genty, Travis Hunter, or Cam Ward. Those would be the 3 selections, the 3 guys that would be on my Heisman Trophy ballot. You could order them up any way you want, 1, 2, and 3. So Miami should be undefeated this year. I look at their schedule the rest of the way. Virginia Tech they play them Friday, not as good as I thought Virginia Tech was going to be. Then they play California, you get a good Louisville squad, and we'll see what Louisville does this weekend up against Notre Dame. Florida State, Duke, Georgia Tech, Wake Forest, and Syracuse. There's not a game on that schedule that Miami should lose. I think they'll be a favorite in every one of them. They do play at Louisville, so maybe, depending on what Louisville does this weekend, could Louisville be a favorite in that one? I guess it's possible. But in all likelihood, Miami's going to be a favorite in every game they play the rest of the regular season. With that being said, though, as impressive as their wins have been because of how lopsided the scores are, they haven't played an opponent yet that makes me put them in the top 5. So you've smashed Florida. I thought that game would be close, but I didn't look at that win as, oh my goodness gracious, Miami, they took it to Florida, so now all of a sudden Miami's a great team. No, just in the schedule they're playing right now, they look like a great team. And maybe they can be, a great team up against higher competition. But then playing Florida A&M, Ball State, and South Florida is a solid coach. I'm not going to get all delirious where I say, okay, Miami's definitely great, they're elite, they're on their way. Anything short of winning the ACC this year would be an epic failure now. I look at the ACC. It's a down year. They're the worst out of the top 4 conferences in college football. I'm a big fan of Mario Cristobal. I'm a big fan of Cam Ward. Like them both, but right now they just got to play better competition. And, hey, that's out of their control, but that's the reason why they're out of the top 5 for me right now.
What about Oregon, who they were off last week, but coming off of that big win over Oregon State?
Yeah, so for me, it's just that when you only look like the way that we expected Oregon in one game to look, I can't put you in the top 5. At the end of the year, that could be one of the best teams in the country, but they struggled with Idaho. Quite frankly, I thought they should have lost the game up against Boise State, and then they smashed Oregon State, especially in that second half. So for me, I just haven't seen them play the way that they should look for enough yet, so that's why they're on the outside looking into the top 5.
And then Ole Miss, who has won every game by at least 34 points this season.
That was a tough one to leave out. I think Tennessee's better. Eventually, the Ole Miss schedule will pick up in intensity. They play Kentucky this weekend. We'll see what happens there. They have South Carolina in the schedule, but then they have a stretch of LSU, Oklahoma, forget about Arkansas, and then Georgia. So we'll see this Ole Miss team. We know their offense is really good. Their questions were about their defense. So far, the highest points they've allowed a game was 13 against Georgia Southern. The other game, 6 against Wake Forest, 3 against Middle Tennessee, and 0 against Furman. But I read that schedule. That's not Murderer's Row exactly. So the lack of competition and seeing if that defense is actually legit, I have to wait until I put them in the top 5 just because of the fact of what the schedule is. And there's been other teams that have played better competition so far. All righty, let me go to the NFL. So this is how I did the NFL this week. It was basically ranking the undefeated teams. That's how I did it. So if you have a loss on the schedule, at the end of the year, you may be in the top 5. But right now, this is in the now, you're not in the top 5. So let me start things off in at number 5. It's the Seattle Seahawks. I'm impressed with Mike McDonald. I like what he's done so far. Geno Smith is playing like 2 years ago. Geno Smith, and they have a bevy of weapons on the offensive side of the ball. But I can't put them any higher than 5 out of these undefeated teams because their schedule is Denver, New England, and then Miami without Tua Tagovailoa. So that's why I put the Seahawks in at 5. The Steelers, their offense is fine, but you start with their defense and also their coaching. We know Justin Fields, even though Mike Tomlin won't say it, he is the guy now with the Pittsburgh Steelers. They still have some concerns with that offensive line. But I put the Steelers in at 4 after getting a good victory up against the Chargers. Unfortunately, Justin Herbert got banged up in that game, and he was banged up going in. In at number 3, this team is the team I've been most impressed with so far in the entirety of the NFL, and that's the Minnesota Vikings. It's one thing to smash the Giants. I thought they would win that game. I didn't think they would smash the Giants. But then to follow it up with beating the San Francisco 49ers and then blowing out the Houston Texans, hey, Sam Darnold so far, it's early. 3 games in, looks like the comeback player of the year. And Brian Flores, he should be a coach somewhere next year as a head coach. Now, I know there's a lawsuit, so that's a complicated situation. But Kevin O'Connell and the Vikings right now and Justin Jefferson, let's not forget my guy Jay Jettis, they're looking really damn good. And we'll see what happens in the next 4 games. And that will ultimately tell us what Minnesota could be. But they're looking like a playoff team through the first 3 weeks. And at number 2, they haven't played their best, but it's still better when they go up against all the rest. And that's been the theme for the last year with the Kansas City Chiefs. And I look at Kansas City, it's another game they could have lost. Like they could have lost to the Ravens. Isaiah Likely couldn't get that other toe down. They could have lost to the Bengals. The Bengals committed a defensive pass interference that gave Kansas City a new set of downs. They should have lost to the Falcons if the Falcons didn't get too cute with the play calling, and also the Zebras need to be fair and call pass interference because Kyle Pitts was definitely interfered with. But that Kansas City team, they're vulnerable, but we said that last year, and no one was able to take them down. They're in at number 2. And I thought I would have moved them off the number 1 spot, but that's how great the Buffalo Bills have looked. After halftime in their first game up against the Cardinals, they've been the best team in the league. They came back, they defeated Kyler Murray and Marvin Harrison Jr., then they smashed their opponent in week 2 in the Miami Dolphins. I know the takeaway from that game was Tua getting hurt, but they were smashing the Dolphins before Tua got hurt, and then they absolutely just dominated the Jacksonville Jaguars. And you're seeing a team that isn't focused right now, and the feelings of Stephon Diggs, he's no longer there, and you have Josh Allen spreading that ball around, had 4 passing touchdowns to 4 different players on that team, and they don't have to worry about an individual. They are playing good complementary team football, so the Bills are in at number 1. So Seahawks 5, Steelers 4, Vikings 3, Chiefs 2, Bills 1. That's how I rank the 5 undefeated teams. Stuart Kovac, speak now or forever hold your peace.
What about the Texans, who are not undefeated because of that blowout loss to the Vikings?
Well, that's why. I didn't love the way that they didn't finish off drives against the Bears, but they were 2-0. They were a little sloppy in week 1 up against the Indianapolis Colts, but you lose that game 34-7 to the Minnesota Vikings. I can't put you in the top 5, even though I still believe in that Texans team. And let's be real, that division stinks. The Colts, Anthony Richardson doesn't look like a franchise quarterback. Jacksonville is just a disaster, and Will Levis will inevitably get benched, so they could afford a loss like that, and they'll be able to bounce back.
What about the Jets, who have rebounded nicely from that week 1 loss to the Niners?
I just got to see more from the Jets. Like smashing the Patriots, if you didn't do that, then I'd be criticizing you. But they were lucky to win that game up against Tennessee. They got smashed by the 49ers. They played Denver this week. They should smash them as well. But let's see what happens when they go up against their old friend Sam Darnold in the following week on a Monday Night Football game up against the Buffalo Bills before I get too delirious with the praise of the JTS Jets.
How about the Lions? 2-1, but 3 very close games.
Yeah, so the Rams game, I actually walked away more impressed with the Rams, even though the Rams lost the game. Tampa Bay, they lose that one. And then the Arizona game, like they were the better team, but they could have really put that game out of reach. They're going to be designed this year off the running backs with Montgomery and Gibbs, and then Goff is going to be a game manager and eventually have to step up and make a 3rd down throw, which he did on Sunday. But I just don't think they've looked like the way that we thought the Lions would look, and that's why for now, at the end of the year, I think they'll be a top 5 team, but for now, they're on the outside looking in.
And last but not least, the Eagles, who squeaked one out over the Saints.
Nick Sirianni, I can't trust him. This team should be 3-0. I know Saquon's got to catch the ball up against the Falcons, but what Nick Sirianni did, just passing up the points twice on back-to-back drives against the Saints, was a disaster, and he should be sending thank you notes this week to Saquon Barkley, Dallas Goedert, Derek Carr, Stu's guy, and then also Vic Fangio and that defense. That's a team that has a lot of talent, but their coach, I just don't know what he does, and I can't trust him. So there you go. College football, my top 5 this week. Texas 1, Georgia 2, Ohio State 3, Alabama 4, Tennessee 5. And in the NFL, I just ranked the undefeated teams. Buffalo 1, Kansas City 2, Minnesota 3, Pittsburgh 4, and the Seahawks of Seattle in at 5. We'll take a timeout. We'll come on back with Chase Winovich when the Zach Gelb Show continues. Football is back, and what better way to celebrate than winning some cash with Sleeper Picks? Sleeper Picks is a fantasy game, but you can win real money. Just pick more or less and at least 2 player stats. If your picks are right, you win. You can pick up to 8 players to win up to 100 times your money, and Sleeper has a couple huge offers to kickstart the football season. For new users, Sleeper will match your first deposit with up to $100 credit to your account. If you've already played, Sleeper's got discounted player projections for you every week of the season. So download the Sleeper app now and use promo code SCORE, and your first deposit will be double with the credit up to $100. What are you waiting for? Download Sleeper today and use code SCORE for a credit up to $100 match on your first deposit. That's code SCORE, SCORE. Must be 18 years in most states and in state where it is legal. Promo code and other restrictions apply. Visit sleeper.com. Please wager responsibly. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-426-2587 for help. Paid for by Blitz Studios.
You're in a 4-minute break. 3 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. .45 seconds remaining. .30 seconds remaining. .15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Welcome back to the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network.
All right, it is the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. We should be able to connect momentarily with the former Michigan player in Chase Winovich, who also spent a few years in the NFL with the New England Patriots and the Cleveland Browns, was a two-time first-team All-Big Ten player during his time with the Wolverines, and he has a neat thing that's going on down now. So we will get Chase up coming up in a few minutes right here on the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network, because that was a huge, and I mean a huge, season-saving victory for Michigan over the weekend, where they lose that game to Texas. Everyone's out on them. A lot of people high on USC, with USC beating LSU early on in the season. And then the game in the Big House was really defined by Kalel Mullings, in addition to the defensive play of Michigan, as Will Johnson did get a pick six, but Mullings put that team on his back, especially on that last drive where he basically took the ball from his 20 to USC's 20 and then punched it in on that 4th and goal scenario. So let's connect right now with Chase Winovich. And Chase is here today on behalf of Smirnoff Smash Vodka Soda, as they're bringing the Smirnoff Smash series to Ann Arbor, Michigan, where fans will get the opportunity to play alongside Chase on the Smirnoff Smash pickleball court at Wolverine Pickleball. Chase, appreciate the time. Thanks so much for doing this. How you been?
Been great. How about you guys?
Well, I'm doing fantastic. So when you go back to campus, where do you go to eat? You go get a Zingerman sandwich, you get a little no tie, you maybe go to Charlie's and get one of those crazy fishbowl drinks. What do you do when Chase Winovich is back in the big house territory?
Man, I tell you what, you know all the spots. I'd say Frida's. That's another one that's pretty amazing. Mr. Spots, also great. I wish they still had Quickie Burger. You know, when I make it really big, and you know, I'm gonna have to return that one.
So, what is it like for you to go back to campus? I know you've been back before, but tell me what you got cooking going on in the business world as well.
Yeah, so coming back to campus is awesome. It's really cool to see people's reaction when they're like, you know, is that Chase Winovich? I just think that you know, I think that it's really amazing just how big of a deal, you know, Michigan football is to just the Michigan community, Michigan fan base, and the school. And you know, I love my time there. I tried to give everything I had on every single play. And you know, I hate to brag, I got a trophy, you know, just dusting off earlier today. The MVP trophy, you know. No, I'm just joking. But yeah, no, it's great. Yeah, in business world, I retired last October. You know, it's like something told me I was getting promoted and not demoted. And, you know, I just went for it. And, you know, I had an idea and built a team, 8 people now. And so we're off to the races.
And tell me what you got cooking with Smirnoff Smash and obviously this pickleball tournament.
Yeah, I'm really excited. As I said, I'm coming back to Michigan. And ultimately, you know, what this is about is that, you know, partnering with Smirnoff, obviously, but welcoming, you know, the Smash Vodka product that they're offering. And I can't say I'm going to have some myself, but, you know, let's just say I may. Ultimately, you know, I want to invite everybody that's listening to this and just like the Michigan community, let's turn it up. Let's have a great time. And we're going to be doing a competition on September 27th. You can check my socials, or if you guys provide that information as well in terms of the actual address. You know, I'm just saying watermelon lime is the flavor ultimately, you know, to have. And small correction though, the pickleball is played on Friday. You know, I'm just looking forward to the competition. Get back in the ring, get back in the arena.
How would you evaluate your pickleball abilities, Chase Winovich?
I don't know. I guess we'll see. You know, you gotta tune in to find out. That's sort of the excitement, you know, see for yourself. But hey, one more thing though is tomorrow I'll be visiting bars in Ann Arbor.
Awesome.
So yeah, I'm taking things one day at a time, obviously here. Tomorrow we're coming there. We're gonna visit some bars and check out a few locations. And then Friday is when it all goes down and you guys get to see my pickleball performance. Luckily for them, it's not football, so I can't tackle them, but I may try if they beat me.
Well, you know there's going to be a good vibe on campus after what the Michigan fans and the Michigan students got to see on Saturday. That was some game. Michigan's back were up against the wall, you know, really had no margin of error with how things did go up against Texas. How about the way that Michigan was able to pull that one out up against USC?
It was absolutely incredible. I know that so many people had reached out to me just excited, you know, you love to see it. I think the week prior, obviously I was at that game and did not go the way that I think most fans, you know, maybe hoped it would go. Ultimately, though, I think that it makes a statement when you could lose a game like that and then come into another game against a team like USC and just grind it out. And at the end of the day, the only stat that matters is that W, and we got it. So let's go blue.
Yeah, and Kalel Mullings was unbelievable in that game, but I want to get your defensive expertise, Chase Winovich. Hey, Mason Graham, Will Johnson, they both look like they're going to be 2 top 10 picks, and Kenneth Grant, he's really working his way and making a case into the first round now. How about those 3 players for Michigan and what you've been able to see out of them throughout the last few years?
Once again, you love to see it. Obviously, I'm a defensive guy, and having played on the defensive line, seeing Mason Graham, even at the Rose Bowl last year, I remember seeing him and being like, yeah, that guy, he can play football now. And, it continues to be that way. And, I just support him, every time I see one of those guys and talk with them, I'm always like, anything you guys need, never hesitate to reach out. And, I'm just pulling from all the way, man. I'm go blue. And, I can't wait to see what happens with the rest of their career.
What can you think Chargers fans expect out of Jim Harbaugh? We know what he did at Michigan. We know what he was like as an NFL coach with the 49ers. They got a big game coming up this weekend against the Chiefs. They just lost to the Steelers. They're 2-1 though. Harbaugh going back to the NFL. Do you think he'll end up getting that Super Bowl that he's chasing?
I think so. I mean, you never know until you know. I mean, obviously, it's like sports is a lot like F1, where it's like trying to get that 1% faster is difficult when you have a salary cap, especially like in football. The thing about coach is that he thinks differently, and that could be good or bad if you're not aligned with his thinking. But Coach Harbaugh is somebody that you don't want to play against, because that guy, he's number one, he's committed. Number two, I'm not just saying this because my last name is Winovich, but he's a winner. And if you give him a long enough time and you just, let him cook, if you will, as the kids say these days, he's going to come out with that dub. And, ultimately, I just think back to the time when I was trying to get him to switch me back from tight end to defense. And he's like, I don't really know, and then I was like, Coach, they named me Chase, not Catch, and he's like, that's a great point. And so
that's unbelievable. Hey, talking about winners, Bill Belichick, he's on the sidelines this year, but not an NFL sideline. He's on the media world right now, the media circuit. I think he'll be back and coaching next year. I know you played for Bill during your time in New England. Do you think Bill will ultimately make a return and get hired in this next coming up cycle?
Yeah, I would be surprised if he wasn't. I think that a lot of things have to go right as a coach. And the thing about that conversation, was it Bill? Was it Tom? It's not so binary. It's not so black and white. Having played with, obviously Tom, and having played under Coach Belichick, I'd say it's both. And I think that you don't win 6 Super Bowls by accident. He has such a really cool and unique way, similar to Coach Harbaugh, but different, of how to approach the game and just applying and learning from so many different types of things. For example, like the military and strategy, and war essentially, but to other sports, and just to see him as a coach, or as a player, but as a coach, really incorporate all those elements into his philosophy as a coach, and his ability to recognize individual people's skill set and then put them into a position to win based off his understanding of the opponent and his understanding of football, makes him really unique. And he's just a winner. Some people are, some people aren't. Some people, they figure out how to do it. And as soon as he gets the chance, I wouldn't be surprised to see him back and win.
Yeah, I know you got to bounce. Last thing I want to ask you. I saw last year during the Rose Bowl, you put up a photo with Connor Stallions at the Rose Bowl. How'd that come about? You guys close, just wondering?
Yeah, no, Connor's always going to be my boy. I just felt like, at the end of the day, the guy was falling on the sword for Michigan. And I felt compelled to extend a hand to him and say, listen, man, I don't know exactly what went down or what didn't go down. I know that there's the Netflix stuff out now, which you guys can form your own conclusions on. Ultimately, there's something to be said for doing the right thing. And, I thought he deserved it. And so I just reached out a hand, and I'm glad I did.
And Michigan obviously did go on to win the national championship. Did you kind of look back at everything with Stallions and say, man, that was really blown out of proportion?
Exactly. And I knew that, based off just talking to him and just hearing his case and just connecting with him. Ultimately, the guy loves Michigan, The guy loves Michigan.
That's for sure.
We had a conversation. It's like there was a story, whether he said it or not. He's like, my only regret is that I had but one life to give for my country. It's like my only regret is that I couldn't help out Michigan but more times. Like, it's just like he just loves it, and it's inspiring, honestly.
He is Chase Winovich. Once again, Chase is here today on behalf of Smirnoff Smash Vodka Soda, and they're bringing the Smirnoff Smash series to Ann Arbor, Michigan, where fans will get the opportunity to play alongside Chase on the Smirnoff Smash pickleball court at Wolverine Pickleball. Chase, appreciate it. Thanks so much. Good luck.
Yep, come out and see me the next couple of days. See you guys. Appreciate the help.
You got it. There he is, Chase Winovich, kind enough to join us on the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. Okay, let's go off the Belichick conversation from that. We'll do that on the other side. Through 3 weeks, I do believe Belichick's going to be back on the sideline next year. But the question is where? I have 5 destinations. We'll break down those 5 destinations when we come on back. Update time first. Let's send it over to Rich Ackerman.
Infinity Sports Network Sports Flash.
4, and there are already a lot of players done for the season. The Cardinals have lost Justin Jones with a torn tricep, and the Commanders won't have Austin Eckler when they meet the Cardinals because of a concussion, while Broncos linebacker Alex Singleton also joins the unfortunate list of those done with a torn ACL. The Giants have ruled out both corners Drew Phillips and Adoree Jackson for tomorrow night against the Cowboys, and Keenan Allen returned to Bears practice after missing the last 2 games with a heel injury. The Saints' Alvin Kamara did not practice today due to hip and rib injuries. Baseball right now, bottom of the 8th. The Mariners trying to stay in contention, 2.5 back for the final wild card. They lead the Astros by a score of 5-1. Mitch Garver with a home run in that one for Seattle. The Braves' run of 6 consecutive division titles came to an end Monday night. They're looking to keep their streak of postseason appearances alive. They pulled it within a half a game of the final wild card in the NL with last night's win over the Mets, and will send 18-game winner Chris Sale to the mound tonight, weather permitting, in Atlanta. The Diamondbacks right above them host the Giants, trying to bounce back after their 3rd straight loss. I'm Rich Ackerman.
This is the Infinity Sports Network. Follow us on X. Our handle is INF Sports Network. That's INF Sports Network on X.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. 2 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Five seconds remaining. Seconds remaining. Seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
This is the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network.
Alrighty, I think it's a lock. I don't even think it's a debate anymore. I think it's a lock that Bill Belichick is going to be back on the NFL sidelines next year. Stu, I'm at 100% that it happens. As long as Bill wants it to happen. Like, could Bill fall in love with this media stuff where he's become a media whore and he's doing like every possible media thing that will pay him to do media? Yeah, like I guess there's, I know I just said it's 100%, but I guess there's maybe like a 1% chance that Bill goes, I like this media stuff. I'm going to just no longer coach in the National Football League. Like, I guess that's possible, but I would really be shocked if that happens. And also, the image reshaping that Belichick is doing, where it's weird. You win 6 Super Bowls, and you would think you don't have to reshape your image, but with how it ended, people forget so quickly. But then what the criticism was the last year could evaporate after you say the right things, you smile a little bit, and you provide a few zingers that are good on McAfee's show or on the Manning broadcast as well. And I think already through 3 weeks, people are like, oh, wow, look how interesting Bill is. Look at the perspective Bill Belichick brings. Is that a smile? Bill, did you just smile? I've seen you win Super Bowls where you don't smile. Did you just smile? And I think that's going to make people, not that this should need to happen, but it will give people a different image and a different view quickly of Bill, where now there will be an NFL owner with, let's say, like 7 or 8 jobs that open up, where last offseason only one was really interested in hiring him. That was Arthur Blank. He got talked out of it, no matter what Arthur Blank wants to say. I don't think that all the owners that have jobs open this year are going to pass on Bill Belichick, and I ultimately do think Bill will be back on the sidelines next year. Stu, where are you at? Do you think this is like basically a lock as I do that Belichick's back next year?
Yeah, I'm with you. Again, I don't think it's 100%, but I think it's really, really, really close. There's also just too many teams, right? Like, if this was a year where there weren't going to be a lot of good job openings, there's going to be a lot of good job openings. He's going to have his pick of the litter, I feel like.
I'm laughing, and here's why. There's a great, great comment in the YouTube chat, and I'll clean it up a little bit. Chuck Engine says, Bill is checking out potential colleges in Philadelphia for his girlfriend. That's a good one, Chuck. Chuck, that's a good one. All righty, here are the 5 destinations. So some of these teams that I mentioned, like the team that I'm in at number 5, you're going to say, oh, if they're open up, why isn't that 1 or 2? Because, yes, I think Bill, that could be viewed as a great destination for Bill, but I don't know if that organization is going to pay up for Bill Belichick. So in at number 5, there is a legitimate chance that at the end of this year, Zach Taylor isn't coaching the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, they missed the playoffs last year, but it wasn't ugly for them. Burrow got hurt, and they were still a solid football team. But if Burrow stays healthy, and this team is now 0-3, and you miss the playoffs again, I think all options are on the table. Now, I don't trust the Brown family to ultimately say, hey, we're going to go give Bill all the control and pay Bill whatever he wants. But if they were smart, they would. Because here was the big misnomer with Bill at the end. Bill wasn't a bad coach at the end. You look at the last 3 seasons of Belichick. They had a bottom 5 roster 3 years ago. They made the playoffs in Mac Jones' first year. Then after that, they had a bottom 5 roster again. They were 8-9, and they had a chance the last game of the season to make the playoffs. And last year, it bottomed out for them where they won 4 or 5 games or whatever it was, but their roster finally reflected their record. So what's the problem with Bill? It's not the coaching. It's Bill shouldn't be picking the players. Bill needs to have some checks and balances in a strong general manager or someone that he could at least work with. So Bengals in at number 5. 4. I heard Albert Breer say that this is a dark horse for the Bill Belichick sweepstakes. He was on with Dan Patrick yesterday. So Albert Breer was talking about how Bill has a good relationship with the Khan family, to a point where when they hired, why can't I remember the coach's name? Doug Marrone. When they hired Doug Marrone as the head coach, that the Jaguars, not get the blessing is the right phrase, but they kind of ran it by Bill Belichick. Is this a move that we should do? And the Jaguars, even though sometimes they have, that feeling or that look just because the fan base isn't strong and, they play games in London, that sometimes gives off the connotation that they're a cheap franchise. But they're not. The Jaguars went out of their way to give Urban Meyer a ridiculous contract. And then when Urban didn't work, and they knew that less than a year in, they got rid of Urban, and they went swinging for a big-time coach who has won a Super Bowl and beat Bill in a Super Bowl in Doug Peterson. So the Jaguars aren't afraid to go star hunting. And if there is a previous relationship, which there is with the Khan family and Bill Belichick, I think it's on the table. I do think it's on the table. And Bill may look at them and say, hey, they don't have a great team, but they got a good roster. And the ego of Bill could take over where he could think, okay, I could fix that defense, and I could also fix Trevor Lawrence. And also, you're in a division where the Colts don't have their act together, Tennessee doesn't have their act together, and the one team you're competing up against are the Texans. But you know that Texans organization pretty well because your right-hand man for all those years was Nick Caserio, and he's like the forgotten guy, but he runs the show with the Houston Texans serving as their general manager. So I put the Jaguars in at 4. 3. So just like the Bengals, I think on paper it's a good roster, but I fear that the organization would be too cheap to do this. Because the Bears, they should have got rid of Eberflus at the end of last season if they could have gotten Jim Harbaugh. Let's just start there. And you can't tell me that Harbaugh, even though I think he preferred to go to the Chargers, weren't interested with the Bears. But the Bears didn't even try to take that swing at Harbaugh because I don't think they were going to pay Harbaugh what he wanted. So you could still have the same situation a year later where Ryan Poles, right, you thought he did a solid job. The offensive line still stinks. But he's been praised for the drafts, too, and some of the roster that he built going into the season, even though now it has questions. It's like, okay, it's one thing to get rid of Eberflus, but are the Bears going to get rid of Poles? And will Poles and Bill be able to coexist? I don't think Bill will have respect for Poles because he's a younger general manager, right, former player. And I also question if the Bears would give Belichick the money that he wants. But from the Bill side of this, even though you're going into a very good division, people believe in Caleb Williams, and a lot of people just think the coaching needs to improve with the Chicago Bears. There's enough talent. There's enough foundation there. So I put the Bears in at 3. And I do believe 1 and 2. As you know, I'm not a big 1A, a 1-1A type of guy. But if there was ever a case for 1-1A, it could be this one. In terms of, I think both these teams desire to go get Bill, but I have to rank them. So I put the Cowboys in at 2. And you even had Jerry Jones. Jerry Jones, before the season started, with his current coach already still under contract. And I know he's entering the last year of the contract, and he is a lame duck coach. And Jerry likes to do this. He did this with Jason Garrett. He waited for the contract to expire. So you didn't have to fire him, even though that is basically firing him. They didn't renew or renegotiate with Jason Garrett. They just let him go. I think the same thing's going to happen with Mike McCarthy, where McCarthy's done a good job with the Cowboys. The last 3 years, it's been 12-win seasons. Just come postseason time, they only have 1 playoff win. And that 1 playoff win was up against a lousy 8-9 Tampa Bay Buccaneers team. So McCarthy, I don't think is a bad guy. I don't think Jerry Jones has a disdain for Mike McCarthy. But I do think Jerry Jones is attracted to the idea of having Belichick as his coach. Because Jerry Jones is in the drama and the headlines business now. He's not in the winning games business, which could be a problem for Bill. And, right, you have Jerry popping his mouth and running his mouth each and every week and popping off on the 9,000 interviews that he does weekly for 105.3 The Fan in Dallas. And I don't think Bill would love to have to answer for everything Jerry Jones does, but Bill has dealt with a lot of distractions that are worse than Jerry Jones before because he just sits there and he goes, we're going to do what's in the best interest of the team. I'm not going to comment on that. Whenever Bill doesn't like something that he gets asked about. But Jerry made it clear, and he told everyone, hey, I know I could work with Bill. He said that before the start of the season. And I think that was Jerry, whether he meant it or not, he was putting out like the Batman signal for Bill Belichick to leave that door open. And I know people could say, well, Bill would never want to work for Jerry. Bill can't coexist with Jerry Jones. You know what? Maybe not long term. And there's probably an expiration date on that, and I don't see that going any longer than 3 or 4 years. But Bill is chasing that Shula record, which he's not that far behind. And can he go get, 16 or 15 wins, whatever it is, to go get Shula in Dallas? Absolutely. If Mike McCarthy could win 3 straight years of 12 games there, Bill Belichick could go get that Shula record with the Cowboys. He could do that for most wins of all time. And Jerry once hired Bill Parcells. And Bill Parcells and Bill Belichick, right? We know what their relationship used to be. So the Cowboys are in at 2. 1, I think it's the Eagles. Now, it would go against everything the Eagles usually kind of want out as their head coach with Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman. And that's to have a guy that hasn't been a head coach before, someone that they could control and kind of serve as that puppet kind of figure. But the Eagles are trying to get that second Super Bowl. After the Eagles beat Belichick in the Super Bowl, they told everyone that would listen that this is going to be the norm. We're the next NFL dynasty. Get used to this, Philadelphia. Then they made the playoffs the year after that. They lost in the divisional round. The year after that, they lost in the wild card round. They missed the postseason. Then they bring in Sirianni. They make the playoffs. Then they get to the Super Bowl, losing the Super Bowl. And last year, we know they started off 10-1 and then lost in the wild card round. Bringing in Bill would be a total change for the organization and what they usually look for in a coach. But it would be a much needed change. And Bill and Howie Roseman have a good relationship. And I think there's a mutual respect for one another, where Bill knows, hey, I'm one of the best coaches in football. I'm one of the greatest, if not the greatest coach of all time. And Howie right now is one of, if not the best general managers in the league. I think there's a mutual respect where both guys have enough credentials, where even though people think it would be two guys with big opinions and big egos, they'd be clashing heads. I think they'd actually respect each other and tolerate one another. And also for Bill, if the goal is to win a Super Bowl, right? Because it's what does Bill want? Does Bill just want to get the Shula record? Or does Bill want to put himself in a position to go win a Super Bowl? Because if it's just about the Shula record, you go to a lot of teams that don't have a chance to win a Super Bowl, but you go get that record. It's not that far away. But if it's about getting a Super Bowl to play this petty game of who was more important, Brady or Bill, and Brady already got his Super Bowl without Bill, then Philadelphia has to be the top destination. Because that's a team that has enough on both sides of the ball where they should be a 10-1 team like they were last year and not fall off, and be a 10-1 team and actually play better, regardless of what their record said. They weren't always playing clean, smooth games in that 10-1 stretch. So I look at those 5 destinations right now through the first 3 weeks. Bengals 5. I don't think the Bengals would do it. Jaguars 4. Bears 3. Cowboys 2 and Eagles 1. And I thought about swapping the Bears and the Jaguars because I think the Jaguars are more likely to go make that run for Bill than the Bears would be. I think the Bears and the Bengals are too cheap, or the Jaguars at least. They go pay for a big name. All right, this is Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. We will have our weekly segment with Hot Take Hickey when we come on back. A lot to delve into in the college football world with the big story of the day, Matthew Sluka, and also get into some happenings around the NFL. And also, we got to get some predictions out of Hickey. We need to find out whoever Hickey predicts means, okay, that team's going to lose, and then we bet the other team that he tells you not to pick. So we'll do some college football predictions with Hickey, and we'll see if we're on the same side of the fence as some things or if we disagree on some other things. Coming on back, find out on the show next.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 2 minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
To infinity and beyond.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
Alrighty, this is the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network, hour number 3 of our radio program. Right now, we welcome in his weekly spot, the host of Hick at Night on the Infinity Sports Network from 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. Eastern Time. That's on Sunday evenings into early Monday morning. And that is Ryan Hot Take Hickey. You could hear during the week as the producer of the JR Sport Brief Extravaganza, which is the show that does follow us. You have a lot of haters, by the way, Hot Take Hickey. I'm probably at fault for a lot of that because I've exposed you being wrong a lot and I have fun with it, how you have this power to just mush teams. I did not write this, but this is what Samter wrote on my sheet today on how to introduce you. 5 o'clock p.m. Eastern, Ryan Hickey, the world's biggest mush in studio.
Wow. Interesting.
So Samter's not happy with you.
Why? What is your problem?
So Samter isn't happy because you said something about Ohtani not winning the MVP, and then he said the power of the Hickey Hex was showed right after that because that was the night where Ohtani ended up joining the 50-50 club, and not only joining the 50-50 club, hitting 3 home runs in a game. So I think that was Samter's first experience since being a part of my show on really seeing your powers. But
to be fair about that,
I didn't really have a big problem with your tweet, to be fair, because that was just your obnoxious Mets fandom in you.
It was a little
sarcastic
joke, a little sarcasm. It happened, by the way, after the history already happened. So this is not like before it happened. This is as he's hitting the home run.
But he didn't hit 3 in the game yet.
He had 2 in the game. I mean, the third one, he's hit off a player. Okay. I'm not taking that away, but that third one was a freebie.
Yeah.
But it was after the history was made, after he stole the base, after he hit the 2 home runs to get to the 50-50.
Sure.
It was a little bit of a joke of, great season, but Francisco Lindor was MVP. Now I'm a little concerned that my guy has a bad back injury. He hasn't played in a while, but...
And it was stupid to have him on deck last night. If you're going to have him on deck about to get in the game, he should just be DHing.
It was a joke that was, for the most part, not real, that I like to do once in a while. I just throw it out there on Twitter, just get some of the fish chumming, and I guess Samter was on the hook.
So I got a few messages last night, a few DMs.
Okay.
And I ended up using the rewind function. Good company guy that I am on the always great Odyssey app. And I went back to listen what people were directing me to. And I had a conversation with you, and you'll remember this on Monday, because it was a very stern conversation. And I had a conversation with you on Monday. And I said, do me a favor, Ryan. Whatever you do, shut your mouth and don't make any bold guarantees about the Mets. And right away, Stu was my witness. Can I get a witness? Yeah. Stu was my witness. And the words that came out of your mouth were, oh, well, the Mets are sweeping the Atlanta Braves.
Oh, yeah. I remember it.
So Stu looked at me, and he could already see the smoke coming out of my ears, and he started laughing. And I thought you would learn from your last blunder when you touched the money, when the Rangers, this was going back to when we worked together, were in the Eastern Conference Final, and they were up 2-0 against the Lightning, and you said how you were reserving your spot. The Rangers are winning the cup, and you're going to have a chair at the Canyon of Heroes, and the Rangers didn't win a game for the rest of the season. And I said, if you want to say big guarantees for Penn State and the Colts, go ahead and do that. It doesn't impact me. But when it's my teams, like the Mets and the Rangers, keep my teams out your bleeping mouth with the guarantees. So I went back and listened last night, and you were talking about how dangerously confident you were.
That's right.
In the Mets taking care of business against the Atlanta Braves. And I just wish you would learn a little bit. Now, the Mets season isn't over. I still think they're going to make the playoffs, to be fair. But they lose last night. And last time I checked, in a 3-game series, if a team was going to sweep, they would win all 3 and not lose the first game of that series.
Here's your problem. Here's Stu's problem. Here's everybody who's listening's problem. You know what I've had enough of as a fan? Cowardice. Throw that out the window. You have to believe with what you are seeing. The Mets went at home, took 3-4 against the Phillies, are playing really good September baseball. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to believe what I'm watching. This team is the opposite of 2022. They were in a downfall. They had a great regular season, and the bottom fell out. I am done being scared. I am believing in a team that has shown me time and time again that they can actually come through, and I'm going to believe they're going to come through.
Okay.
I'm not afraid. The sweep is gone. That's a big...
But you know
that
what
will
my
not come
problem
to
is with
fruition.
you?
But I'm not going down to Atlanta scared and nervous. Oh, I hope they would. No. I'm going down there confident. I'm going to will a sweep. Now, the sweep is gone. I'm willing at least one victory if they ever play before the season ends with this GD hurricane.
So here's the thing.
There's a whole other thing.
And by the way, calm down. There's like a vein popping out of your forehead right now.
Because, fans are too scared. It's a problem. Be confident.
Shut your mouth for a second.
It's a
Here's
epidemic.
your problem, though. I'm not saying you always have to be negative and always have to be pessimistic, but your problem is you're always optimistic. You always pick your teams to win. You always, the minute your teams get into the postseason, say, this is going to be the year. And your teams never win. So why do you keep on taking the bait over and over and over again?
Because right now, for the Mets, in this specific scenario, have given me no reason to doubt them. Mm-hmm. That's why. Okay. Other times, sure, have I gotten a blind eye? Absolutely, I will admit. But in this case, I think it's different.
Okay, let's get to this. Let's do the quarterback first, Matthew Sluka at UNLV.
Mm-hmm.
So this story comes out, and I thought 3 things are in play here. Number 1, whatever the NIL commitment was not being met. That's number 1. So the Sluka family basically is put out there. They were told $100,000, and they were only going to get
3. Well, they've gotten 3 up to 12.
Yeah, so they were only going to get $12,000 out of that $100,000.
Correct.
So there's a difference there of $88,000.
Slight miscalculation.
Yes, I had to be careful, and I had to tread lightly there. I wanted to make sure my numbers were right. The other thing I threw out there was that he wanted more money and tried to renegotiate his NIL after the 3-0 start, right? UNLV's in a good spot, and he realized, I'm worth a little bit more than what I'm getting. Now, the father denied that they ever asked for more money.
Right.
And the other part here, which I don't think it's the direct cause, but it could be with the first option, the second option that happened. Maybe there was a bigger school that caught wind of it, or his representation talked to a bigger school, and there was some tampering behind the scenes where the school found out, hey, he was trying to get more money and they said no, or the NIL commitment wasn't being matched, so their representation talked to some other schools from a bigger program, and they said, hey, go red shirt this year. We'll give you X, Y, and Z amount if you have your eligibility for next year. What do you make, because this is a he said situation right now. What do you make of this whole thing right now in the wild, wild west of college football?
A few things. I think option 3 is by far the least likely option.
Agreed. That's one thing we agree on.
I don't think teams are looking a year in advance based on 3 games or 4 games that this guy, hey, redshirt, we'll give you
Well, teams
100K.
do tamper. Teams tamper.
No, I agree, but I'm saying
closer
I don't think
to when the window opens.
Right. I don't think it's in season, a month into the year, and you're looking at next year ready. Hey, leave after 4 good games, and we're going to give you $100,000 if you redshirt. I don't think that's the case.
Okay.
I believe, for the most part, that the Sluka family is telling the truth.
Yeah.
That they were promised $100K, or let's say in that ballpark, and right now, they are claiming this. An assistant coach told him that this is the offer.
Which sounds
and you have
right.
The collective saying, whoa, we never signed off on this. He said one thing, but we never talked about it. This is what we negotiated, which was that $12,000 payment over 4 months.
Yeah.
And I think for me, so I think for the most part, the kid got led astray. He was told one number that the assistant coach either knowingly or unknowingly knew he couldn't actually provide. And now you're seeing kind of when the separation between the coaches and the collective, they're kind of working in different paths here. This miscommunication, unfortunately, does happen. And I put mostly the blame on not only school, but bigger than that, the NCAA, because they dragged their feet this entire time, even though everybody knew player compensation is coming. It's inevitable. It's when, not if. They kept saying, oh, no, it's never going to happen.
Yeah.
And so when they're forced legally to allow players to get paid and they couldn't punish them, they had no plan because they never foresaw a day in which they were going to be around and players are getting paid. So they said, oh, well, we have no plan, so there's no regulation. So basically you do whatever the hell you want. And that's why a lot of this stuff happens. It stinks that it's one of those verbal handshake agreements and you put a lot of faith if you're the family and the player in what the coach says and it doesn't come through. They, I think, did get screwed. UNLV, I think, it's a scummy move to try to either promise something you can't deliver on or promise something without fully knowing. What I would say to the kid, don't go to school based on money. That's a whole other thing. But
you can go to school based off money. But here's the thing. No, hear me out here, because I do agree with you to some extent. You can pick a school based off money. But when you went to college and I went to college, you sometimes make a decision that doesn't go the way that you plan it out to be, or you make the wrong decision. So if your objective is, let me get the most amount of money possible, it may not be the best thing for your career, but you could maybe stay where you were or go somewhere else where you may not get as much money, but they'll care more for you and they'll put you in a better position to succeed. This one's just so weird because it's in the middle of the season. And I would tend to agree with you if you put a gun to my head and you said, Zach, what do you believe probably happened here? I think the assistant coach promised something that he couldn't deliver on because he really wanted the kid, and he saw the kid's future potential, and he's like, oh, let's just get him here. We'll give him a crazy offer, and then we'll find a way to get the job done. And that's the nasty part of this. At least back in the day, they would just drop a bag of cash. You knew what you were getting.
Right.
Now it's, oh, we'll promise you this. The coaches really aren't allowed to have any contact, so you have to go through the collective, and you'll get this. How much is it? Is it guaranteed? When do you get it and all that? That's why this is a mess. All righty. Let me get into a bus meter with you here.
Ooh.
Because I have 4 quarterbacks that I want to throw out to you. And from my understanding, you thought all 4 of these guys were going to be franchise quarterbacks.
Okay.
So, bust or not a bust? Trevor Lawrence.
If you're doing a meter of like 1 to 10,
okay,
10
let's do this. 1, no chance at being a bust. 10, code red, bust, alert.
Trevor Lawrence is like a 7, man. I hate to say it. I was very wrong on Trevor Lawrence. I agreed with the Jaguars paying him.
You only liked him because he had nice hair.
I like his hair a lot. Maybe I'm looking more at the Clemson days than the NFL days, but he's He's so bad right now in terms of everything, in terms of accuracy, decision making. Now, it's
and
not
him and Press
him.
Taylor are not on the same page.
No, it's not just him. I mean, Doug Peterson for the longest time before the season started didn't even know who was calling the plays and kept it a secret. Now we finally find out it's Press Taylor. But the fact that you couldn't even tell anybody who's calling the plays, let alone keeping it a secret, kind of shows a little bit of miscommunications. Offensive line stinks. The receivers outside of Brian Thomas, no one really scares you. Even still, Brian Thomas is a rookie. Like the team got worse around him. The coaching staff is not great. He, though, has not been great either. I'm nervous about Trevor Lawrence.
Your worst take of all time, in my opinion, and you've had many, but your worst take of all time, I thought your most embarrassing one, was when you said the Bills should trade Josh Allen to get Caleb Williams and reset their organization.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
So I thought that was your worst take because even though I think Caleb Williams could be really good, Josh Allen was the second or third best quarterback in football entering this season, and they still had a window open with Josh Allen because of how great he is. I know you know how great Josh Allen was. Your organization was more money and finances, and you had to reset the clock and all that. But with a guy that hasn't played an NFL game yet compared to a guy that has played in many NFL games, has had a really successful career so far and is still young, I thought that was a terrible take that you had. Or at least that's the one that I just remember the most for the sake of this segment. So let me ask you this. Through 3 games, I thought the Bears were going to be good this year. You thought the Bears were going to be good this year.
Right.
Like, I thought they'd be 9-8. That Bears offensive line stinks. Caleb Williams, where's your bust concern?
1, 0. No concern. Okay. Can't block for him. Against the Colts, I mean, the Colts pass rush is not very good without DeForest Buckner. So he had the most time he's had in the first 3 games. And when he got that time, he made some nice throws. When he has time, he can throw. The problem is he has no time. He's getting killed. It's not him right now is the reason why this offense is struggling. The offensive line can't block for him, and they can't run block, so they are one-dimensional on offense. 3 games, I am nowhere near hitting the panic button on Caleb Williams. I think even the discussion of the whole C.J. Stroud 2.0 now in 2024 between him and Jaden Daniels is ridiculous.
Jaden Daniels is a stud.
He's great.
I love Jaden Daniels coming out of college. I wanted the Patriots to get the second overall
with how
pick.
bad he's been, Caleb Williams is nowhere near Bryce Young at people trying to make the same comparison.
Okay. That was the next thing I was going to ask you. Bryce Young.
I would say 3.5.
Oh, it's got to be higher than that.
I still think it's the organization. I think for me, I'm not worried.
Time out 1 second. You know me. I can't stand David Tepper. I will throw water in the face of David Tepper whenever I get a chance to do so. That offensive line has played well.
Yeah,
and when Andy Dalton has walked in, and I know it's up against the Raiders, but made that offense look as competent it's been in the last year plus, that's a bad look for Bryce Young.
This is what I'll say about Bryce Young. He is someone, I thought he could make those around him better. There are 2 types of quarterbacks. Either they can make those around him better, or they need help around them to be great.
Sure.
I thought Bryce Young could come in and make those around him better. That I think I am wrong about. And I will admit, okay, that is a year and a half in for the most part. That is not the case. He needs help around him. So with that said, I still think he could be a viable franchise quarterback. Like, I think he just needs a better situation. And so, again, is he going to be as good as I thought he would be? No. Did I get it wrong where the Colts should have traded, I thought if they could, and now they can't, like 5 first-round picks to go get him? I was all in on Bryce Young. That's not looking great, but I'm not giving up on Bryce Young. I'm very excited to see where he goes next. I think there are plenty of situations out there where they're quarterback-needy teams that he can fit into and still play at a high level at. It's just not in Carolina.
I will keep one bullet in my chamber for this, so I will not tell you something that I remembered that you once said. I'll wait to hear your response.
Okay.
So far, on a scale of 1 to 10, where is the bus meter for Anthony Richardson of your Colts?
3. Okay. Very low. I'm not nervous so far because I think Josh Allen, I think, is the poster child of you can come in raw and develop. We questioned, can you improve your accuracy at the NFL level? And that was a big question and
but
a
Josh
doubt
Allen
for
is a
while.
rarity. There's a lot of guys that come in with not a ton of great play that end up being bad rather than being elite.
Sure, absolutely. It's not it's not the case for everybody. I agree with that. But I think with the physical traits you see with Anthony Richardson and the mistakes he's making are very correctable. The interceptions he threw last week against the Bears, it's more mechanics than anything else. I mean, he's just missing wide open guys. It is frustrating. Do not get me wrong. But if you are just able to settle your feet and also play more games, he started I think 18 or 19 games since high school.
That's my thing. We've never seen
he has to play more.
Have we ever seen him have a 3-game stretch where it's like, wow, this dude is the guy? It's very up and down with
it. It is. And that's part of, I think, I think part of that can be to the fact he just doesn't play a lot. Like even at Florida, he had 1 year as a starter, and it was a roller coaster. Highs against Utah's, lows against the next week against Kentucky. Even here at the Colts, I mean, the fact that he's even played so far the first 3 games, I hate to say it, it's an accomplishment that he hasn't gotten hurt. I'm not worried yet, though. I think with time, he'll get better. He just needs that time, and he hasn't had it.
So I think this is where what you were talking about in the beginning is your biggest flaw. Where it's like, oh, I'm enough of people being a coward and always expecting the worst. Optimism. I remember your true thoughts on Anthony Richardson before he became a Colt. And you were not a fan of Anthony Richardson as a pro quarterback. And then the moment the Colts drafted him, I was sitting next to you at the draft, you started getting all fired up and talking yourself into Anthony Richardson. I think Anthony Richardson is a social media quarterback. And I know that comes off sounding harsh, but I think he makes some plays that look great on TikTok and look great on Instagram and whatever social media that you want to use, where you see the throw and you're like, I've never seen anything like this. But during an entire game, I don't see enough of a good quarterback. I see highlight reel plays, 1 or 2 or 3 maybe a game, but not really good tape for 60 minutes.
I agree, and it's frustrating. I'll use a Mike Tomlinism here. Mike Tomlin always talks about when he has like guys the mentality. He goes, I'd rather have a guy that I got to pull back and say, calm down, versus rather a guy that have to kick in the butt and say, hey, let's go.
Okay.
So I think for me, I'd rather have a guy in Anthony Richardson who can make the insane plays, who can throw the ball deep accurately and well, but struggles with the intermediate to short, the layups, if you will, versus a guy that can make all the underneath throws, no problem, 5-10 yards easily, but can't push the ball down the field, has no threat whatsoever to make a dynamic play. I think it's easier to have a quarterback figure out the easy stuff and already have the hard stuff, I'm not going to say mastered, but down well enough, versus a guy that right now can't push the ball past 5 or 10 yards down the field.
Okay, let's get some picks. College football this weekend. Georgia, Alabama. Georgia's a 2-point favorite. What's that coming down the track?
Not the Georgia Bulldogs. Give me Bama in this game.
No!
At home. Offensive explosiveness. Georgia's offense, I have a lot of questions about, and I just don't think they'll be able to keep up. Jalen Milroe's dynamic. This Alabama offense, 13 touchdowns this year of 20 or more yards. They are the most explosive offense in the country. Jalen Milroe, most total touchdowns of any player in college football, 14 to 1 turnover. He's been tremendous. And I think Georgia, you saw the Kentucky game. Not that that's a whole referendum on them, but that offense right now, they just remember, they lost going from last year to this year 4 of their top 5 receivers. They have not been able to find replacements for them, nor have they been able to run the ball consistently. They're 80. This is Georgia. They are 84th in the country so far in rushing yards per game. They can't run the ball consistently. They've now become a one-dimensional offense, and I think Alabama's defense is good enough to slow them down. Bama by 3, 27-24. Heard it here first. Kalen DeBoer, the guy wins big games. That's all he does.
You know why I'm upset?
Because you like Alabama, too.
I like Alabama.
There we go.
In the game as well.
Roll Tide, roll. Those in Tuscaloosa, I got you.
Until Saturday at about 10 p.m. Eastern time. All right, 7:30 p.m. Eastern time, NBC. I know you like Penn State to win the game. The spread was at 17.5. I think when it first opened up, it's now at 19 points
going up
in favor of the Nittany Lions. I know what you're going to pick in this one, but let me hear it.
Penn State cover. Well, what's your? Let me hear. And do you have a retort to anything I just said?
Yeah, I love what Brett Bielema said this past week.
Which is what?
That he said Nebraska has a better home crowd than the Penn State Nittany Lions fans, because that is the only national championship you could win with the way James Franklin coaches that team. We have the loudest fans, so let's parade around and talk about how great our fan base is.
Not to call out my own people. That was incorrect. He did not say that.
What do you mean?
A radio host said that on an interview he was on in the Score. They said the environment at Nebraska is better than at Penn State. He did not say that.
But it's been attributed that it was Bielema.
Incorrectly. Because it's also incorrectly attributed that Brett Bielema called out the whiteout energy. But if you listen to the full clip, he did. Penn State fans this week have gotten a little crazy when it comes to what
so
Brett
the Penn
Bielema.
State. Surprise! The Penn State propaganda.
I don't know who said. I'm assuming Penn State fans also picked up the Nebraska thing, because I don't know why Illinois fans would do that. But they also clipped a short clip from his press conference that he questioned the whiteout crowd, how loud it's going to be. When you listen to the full clip, he was not doing that. So,
alrighty, can I get the comment and then we'll get out of here? They usually the chat usually roasts you. So this was actually a nice thing. Chuck Engine. You may want to be careful here, though, Chuck. You're talking about Hickey's girl. Hickey shared some info about his girlfriend on Twitter. She is very pretty and smart and nice.
I didn't share a picture of her. In the article I shared, there was no picture.
Well, maybe they did some stalking on
Chuck
your public Instagram that you posted photos of you and your girlfriend before.
Well, I'll take it. Thanks, Chuck, I guess.
What happened with your girlfriend?
She was featured in an interior design article.
Oh, cool.
Her expertise was
I'm redoing my apartment coming up in a week. You want to do some design in my apartment?
I'll make sure to triple the rate for her. Triple it up. Charge Zach whatever.
That's not nice. All righty, there he is, Hot Take Hickey on the Infinity Sports Network in his weekly spot on the Zach Gelb Show. All righty, we'll take a time out. It is the Zach Gelb Show. Sports fans, listen up. 1 in 8 men will be diagnosed with prostate cancer, and bladder leaks can be a side effect. That's why Depend is teaming up with the Prostate Cancer Foundation to encourage screening, because health is a long game and it's yours to win. Now, here's the cool part. Through November, Depend is contributing up to $300,000 to prostate cancer research by donating 40 cents for every purchase of Shields guards and Real Fit products. Void in Mississippi. Learn more at depend.com.
You're in a 4.5 minute break. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. 45 seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. 15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
You're listening to the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network.
So, there's an account out there, Stu, ML Football, and they usually do a good job aggregating a lot of things and putting it out there. We've been on that account a bunch of times. So, I have not heard this audio yet, but I just saw that this was posted literally 2 minutes ago. So, former NFL general manager Doug Whaley says the Steelers should maybe bench Justin Fields to make him cheaper to re-sign. Like, doesn't this seem like a fake kind of quote? But I don't, ML Football, you may say, okay, sometimes things are taken out of context, but they don't put out fake quotes. So, quote, do you throw Russell Wilson in there and maybe lose a couple games for the future? You don't have to pay him, but you already got your answer by taking him out, close quotes. You know what stands out to me on this whole thing? This is why Doug Whaley is a former NFL general manager. Like, Stu, that can't be real.
No, this isn't like a video game. You can never do that to save a few bucks. No.
This is what happens. Like, I'll give Mike Tannenbaum credit. Mike Tannenbaum at least owns it now. He will say, hey, sometimes I give takes that, I know that they're going to stir up some attention. They're going to draw some attention. I'll give things and I'll say things that, like, actually define the segment. Like on ESPN, I forget what he said. He gave a bold take. They were doing a bold take segment. He goes, I'm not just going to give you a vanilla bold take. I'm going to give you a bold take. Okay. But if you're actually a general manager with a team that's 3-0, by the way, in the Steelers, and you're looking at Justin Fields and saying, we may have to pay him more than what we want to, which could be a gamble long term if he plays really well this season. So let's throw Russell Wilson to the Wolves to try to devalue him. What the heck are we doing? And like the Steelers, I'll get more into this tomorrow on what the Steelers need to do. But the Steelers and Mike Tomlin basically saying, hey, I'm not going to name a starting quarterback. And I'll play you this audio. I know we have it. This is just something I don't get. And these are like the pointless inane games that coaches play with the media and their fans. Here is Mike Tomlin on why he won't name Justin Fields a starter right now.
Now that you're 3 games in, what more do you need to see from Justin? Why not name him the starting quarterback going forward?
Because there's no need. I explained to you the variables of the week. It has not changed. He's going to walk in this building with that mindset tomorrow. And so there's no need to. Sometimes in this business, man, there's a myriad of complex decisions that need to be made. I've learned to make them when it's appropriate and it's not necessary as we sit here right now. When Russ gets to an appropriate point of health and we have a decision to make, I'll make it and I'll announce it and I'll be really transparent about it. But until then, I don't care how many ways you guys ask me, I got no intentions of making a decision that's unnecessary at this juncture.
Well, let's just be real. He knows that he's not going to bench Justin Fields if this keeps up. So it's just kind of pointless to play these games. And Stu, this is something I don't get, why they keep on coddling Russ. I get it. They have respect for Russ. Russ has been in this league for a long time, but it's $1.5 million for Russ to be on their roster this year. Russ is not their franchise quarterback. And I know players aren't supposed to lose jobs because of injuries, but it does happen. I'm not saying that Justin Fields is going to go on to be Tom Brady, but Drew Bledsoe lost his job because of Tom Brady and Belichick made that decision. Like, the Steelers, if they just lose one game and Fields doesn't play well, that doesn't mean Justin Fields should see the bench. Like, it's got to be at least 3 games in a row where it looks pretty damn bad. And you look at their schedule, Indianapolis, Dallas, the Raiders, the Jets, the Giants, like, those are their next 5 games. There's only one game that's like you really view as a tough game, and that's the Jet game. It's not like they can't win any of those games in the next 5, and then they finally get into divisional play. They got to play the Commanders before them, but then they play Baltimore, Cleveland, Cincinnati, Cleveland. They play the Eagles, Baltimore, Kansas City, and Cincinnati. It's like if Fields gets through the first 8 weeks as the starting quarterback, you're not going to bench him in the second half because obviously he showed you enough, and then what, you're going to throw Russ into the fire there? And Russ, who is not a good quarterback anymore, is going to have to then be at a level he hasn't been in at least 3 or 4 years up against really good opponents. Like, this whole thing is a joke. Like, as long as Justin Fields is healthy, I'd be really surprised through at this rate if he's not their starting quarterback for the rest of the season.
Yeah, and to your point about coddling him, like if let's just say he had stayed on the Seahawks and the Seahawks brought in Justin Fields as a backup.
Different.
Totally different.
History.
But they owe him nothing. He's done nothing for them on the field. They owe them. They owe him almost nothing. Monetarily. It's just it's a little bit of a weird situation.
All righty, 855-212-4227, 855-212-4227. I know Bob in California has been holding patiently. He wanted to chime in on the UNLV quarterback Matthew Sluka. Bob, what do you got for us?
How's it going, Zach? Appreciate you taking my call.
Yeah, you got it. What's cooking?
I felt like I had a little bit of insider insight, not necessarily specifically to UNLV, but my son plays Power 4 football, was at one school his first couple years, went through the portal in December, and so now he's at another school. Out of the 28 schools that offered him a scholarship in the portal, 18 of their coaches gave him a number, like, this is what we're going to offer you.
Okay.
So I feel like the coaches are pretty connected with the collective, even though you kind of mentioned the point that they aren't supposed to give a number as a coach, but I think they know what's going on.
See, Bob, that's the thing. I'll let you finish because I'm curious about your insight. But that's the thing. What's so stupid about this? Like, the coaches aren't supposed to be talking about money. The coaches aren't supposed to be dealing with that stuff. But I can guarantee you this: all of them do. It's just which ones are able to cover up their paper trail and not expose that. So it's like it would be naive to think, if let me just use a coach as example. Let's say Brian Kelly at LSU. If he really wants a defensive player and that player's parents are talking to Brian Kelly, like, we all know money's eventually going to come up, and it's not like the coach could just say, hey, you only could talk to the people running the collective. I can't give you that number. He knows what he has at his resource.
Exactly, yeah. But even so, they sign a contract for 6 months. So from January to June, they have a contract.
Okay.
And then they re-sign a contract from July to December. So they know what they're getting. It's on paper. They've signed it. And what happens, because I've seen it happen at both schools, guys will have a great spring game, and then come back in April and say, hey, I want more money. Mm-hmm. Or they'll have a great summer, a great fall camp. I want more money. It happens all the time. All the time.
And it seems like here, in this case, this was done verbally by the coach and they didn't get it in writing. That's what it appears to be the issue here, which is a different topic.
Yeah, and I don't know every 133 Division I schools, but if they aren't signing contracts and having it in writing, then that's their bad. I mean, you got to know stuff like this. I would think that most of them are putting it in writing, so this doesn't happen, but probably that all of them aren't. So, yeah.
Last thing I'll say, and I don't want to out you, so I'm not trying to put you in a tricky spot here, but does your son see the field a lot? Do I now need to adopt the college program? Just wondering.
Yeah, I won't name the school because I don't want to put that out there, but yes, he is. He's a good guy.
Well, do this.
He's a starter.
Bob, you will have my word. I'm going to put you on hold. If you feel comfortable, just let my producer, I will never repeat it on the air, just let my producer know a little bit more about your background, and then I could watch from afar and root from afar, and I will never publicly out you on the air on that one. But, if you're listening to the show and your kid's playing in college football, I would not mind saying, oh, that's pretty cool. His dad, his old man listens to us, and then be able to root from afar, and I'll never bring it on the air. But if you don't want to bring that and tell that to Samter and Stu, I totally get it as well. All righty, let's take a break. We'll come on back with a news brief update time. First, here's the Ackman Rich Ackerman.
Infinity Sports Network Sports Flash.
Well, the Cardinals suffered a significant loss on defense with Justin Jones suffering a torn tricep that ends his season. Broncos linebacker Alex Singleton is also done due to a torn ACL. Austin Eckler will miss the Commanders' matchup against the Cardinals this weekend due to a concussion, while Alvin Kamara set out practice today for the Saints due to hip and rib injuries. The Bears' wide receiving core has been nicked up, but Keenan Allen returning to practice after missing 2 games due to a heel injury. The Mariners beat the Astros 8-1 to move within 2 games of the final wild card in the American League. The National League wild card race has some logistical issues with the Mets and Braves rained out tonight and tomorrow. They are set to play a doubleheader on Monday. New York has half-game lead over the Diamondbacks, who are a half-game up on Atlanta. The Diamondbacks host the Giants after losses in their last 3. The Tigers continue their series against the Rays after wins in 12 of 15. They're tied with the Royals for the second wild card in the AL. KC takes on the Nationals in Washington. I'm Rich Ackerman.
This is the Infinity Sports Network. Follow us on Instagram. Our handle is Infinity Sports Network. That's Infinity Sports Network to follow us on Instagram.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 2 minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Hey, this is Howie. And this is Nick from the Backstreet Boys. And you're listening to the Zach Gelb Show. And guess what? Zach is back. All right.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
Oh, my God. We're back.
All right, it's time to answer Ask the Pros question of the day. It's brought to you by O'Reilly Auto Parts. I just got a photo, and this question was asked to me. It's by Derek. He says, Zach, do you want to adapt the King Henry diet to look like an Adonis? You can submit a question by tweeting at INFSportsCenter at Zach Gelb using the hashtag AskThePros. Think O'Reilly Auto Parts for all your car care needs. Get guaranteed low prices and excellent customer service from the professional parts people at O'Reilly Auto Parts. Here is the Derek Henry diet according to this graphic. Spends $250,000 on his health. No fried food, no dairy, no gluten, no artificial sugars. Doesn't eat till 4 or 5 p.m. during season unless if it's an avocado or a banana in the morning. No. First off, I don't have $250,000 to spend on my health. That's number one. I'm not a huge fried food guy, but I like it here or there. No dairy. Like you always need milk once in a while. No gluten. I like bread too much. No artificial sugars. Stop. And doesn't eat until 4 or 5 p.m. during season? Come on. And I can't have avocado. I'm allergic to avocado. So, no, I have no desire to be like Derek Henry. All righty, let's go to Saul in Nevada next up on the Infinity Sports Network. And also, it seems like I couldn't have Piero's in Vegas if I'm ever in Vegas, if that's the case, if I'm on the Derek Henry diet. Saul, what's happening?
Speaking of Piero's, I'm going to take this quarterback who left the Patriot League in good old Worcester, Massachusetts, and let him rethink things. Oh, we're going to get him a nice, quiet booth, Zach. We're going to get him the Zach Gelb booth at Piero's. Maybe get the veal palm. Maybe a little...
Wait, so you're going to Piero's, Sully? I mean, Saul in Nevada with the former Patriot quarterback?
What? The former Patriot League quarterback.
Gotcha. So Matthew Sluka you're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, if the kid's going to leave the hills of Worcester, Massachusetts and Holy Cross to come play football at UNLV, I mean, you got to take him to Piero's and let him get the full experience. Paying him $100,000 a knot. Piero's is the closer. You guys know this.
100%. No, 1,000%. And you know this. I told you this. My best friend's parents, they went to Piero's, and through you, I told them what to order, and they said it was one of the greatest meals they've ever had.
I mean, they're not wrong, Zach. But, okay, so a couple things I want to talk about. This UNLV kid, whatever. He's, 21, 22 years old? This is the world that college football is in, right? It's slimy, it's dirty, it's getting exposed.
Sure.
I mean, what happened to the good old days? You just give him a bag of money and leave him alone.
Well, at least you know what you're getting then. At least you know what you're getting then, and you know when you're getting it and how you're getting it.
And then for the Belichick thing, I don't know, man. Wherever he goes, I think you and I will always be a fan. He brought us a lot of joy in our life.
Well, if he goes to the Jets, I'll never root for him again.
He's not going to the Jets. He left I'm leaving HC of the NYJ.
Yes.
That's done. He's not going to the Jets. But these other places, why wouldn't you bring a Belichick in? The challenge is, would it just be the coach or to be both coach and GM? And this is where I'm deferring to my good friend Zach Gelb. You have a radio show. I do not.
So, yeah, I would give him the power to definitely be the coach. If that's the deal breaker that he needs to be the GM, I think it depends where. Like in Philadelphia, I'm not firing Howie Roseman to hire Bill Belichick.
No.
In Dallas, In Dallas, Jerry Jones doesn't control the roster. 1,000% the right move. Chicago, I would get rid of Ryan Poles. Jacksonville, I would get rid of Balky. Cincinnati, right? It's structured with the owner running that. So, yeah, I would be the same answer for the Cowboys. So I would say outside of Philadelphia, that's the only one. Like if Bill is hell-bent on having control of the roster, that's the only spot where I would say no out of the destinations I listed. But here's also the other thing. I think it's better for Bill if you have someone picking the players.
I agree.
So, anyway.
Can I talk one last thing about our number one ranked team in the nation of college football? Yeah!
Texas, baby. Hook 'em.
Baby!
All righty, Sully. Love you. There he is. I mean, Saul in Nevada. Let's update you some of the biggest stories in the world of sports with some audio. We'll quickly get to an abbreviated version of the news brief.
Extra, extra, read all about it. Extra, extra, read all about it.
Time for your daily news brief. We get you caught up on the rumors, reports, and reconnaissance from the day in sports.
All righty, let's start with CeeDee Lamb. He's angry at himself for his poor performance in Week 3.
As for me and my performance, I expect a lot out of myself. Quite honestly, I failed myself, and obviously I failed the team just as far as producing and being that game-breaker player for the team, and obviously the guy that they can lean on. And can't blame nobody. You got to start with the man in the mirror, and I'm a huge believer in that. And watching that game kind of pissed me off, but hey, I did that. You know what I'm saying? I can't get mad at nobody else. So with that being said, I've learned.
I appreciate that. He took it on the chin. You know what, Stu? Maybe we could search the internet tomorrow and try to see if there's anything similar to that with Brandon Ayuk. Because Brandon Ayuk has had a bad start to the season after getting paid, and I felt like I haven't heard anything about Brandon Ayuk so far. So I'm wondering if maybe he has the same energy that CeeDee Lamb and accountability that CeeDee Lamb has. Here is Davante Adams on more trade speculation. This is on Up and Adams with Kay Adams. Adams to Adams.
It's every week. It's every week at this point. It's I think they just are waiting for it. I think, they understand that we've had our little bit of a roller coaster ride over the past few years, and obviously it's been clear through receiver. There's been frustrations in the past, but we're trying to turn that page and lock in on something different this year. It's funny that I have to say it like every week for people to like. Sometimes you just get to a point where you are secure enough in how you feel and who you are to where you just, you stop really worrying about what everybody's thinking all the time. You can't please everybody, and at no point have I been, voicing, oh yeah, I want to do this or I want to do that. I've said millions of times if I wanted to do anything, I'd be gone by now. So yeah, I don't have anything else for them. They can continue to speculate on all that if they want.
Stu, when the trade deadline rolls around, will Davante Adams still be on the Raiders?
I think it's close to 50-50 at this point, but I'll say...
Really?
Yeah, but I think he'll... if I had to be right, I'd say he's still on the Raiders.
I think it's 95% that he's on the Raiders by the trade deadline. I said this from the jump. I think he gets traded after the season. Like, that's what people, to me, have to start asking Davante Adams. Davante, I believe you when you say you're going to be on the Raiders for this season. But what about after this season? Because if you want to win a Super Bowl, which you said is the only thing missing from your resume, you're not doing that with the Raiders. I'd give my opinion when asking the question if we had Davante Adams on the show. Finally, let's hear from Lincoln Riley. So this is what annoys me with college coaches. Listen up to Lincoln Riley and what the tape showed how to improve his run defense.
The tape revealed, I don't know, we saw 47 runs and we played 43 of them like a bunch of bosses. That's what it revealed. Now, it doesn't excuse the fact that the 3 long ones that got out, we got to make those 10 or 12-yard runs. When somebody runs it, that amount of times, and they're a talented group, they're going to get through clean like every now and again. But we got to limit those. That's got to be a 10-yard run, a 12-yard run. If it is, we probably give up. We probably give up 7 points in the game.
I hate when college coaches do this. You lost the game. It's a bad look. So they try to not make it look as bad as what people are saying. You allowed some massive running plays, like you even mentioned. And it wasn't just, here or there, like 50, 60-yard runs. Edwards and Mullings. So I don't care if, let's say, there was 40 plays that you stopped 35 of them. Don't let the other 5 be detrimental, which is all he said. But I hate when college coaches don't win a game and then they try to put lipstick on a pig to justify their losing. If you put lipstick on a pig, it's still a pig. And that's what Lincoln Riley just tried to do there. He tried to not make it look as bad. You don't walk away from where Michigan was as a program, and I say this as a Michigan fan, looking good from that performance. So stop trying to say that your defense is all that when it wasn't. All righty, that will conclude the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. Big thanks to Greg McElroy for joining us, Chase Winovich as well, and the Hot Take Hickey. Great job on the phones today. Great job in the YouTube chat as well. However you do listen to us, we do thank you. And I also have to thank Stuart Kovacs and also Michael Samter as well. There's a lot of people here today. I just saw some person run up to the studio door, and I thought she was about to come into the studio, and then she realized she was in the wrong place. So a lot of chickens around here with their heads cut off, I guess. That was interesting. She was caught right in her tracks when she saw me, and she went the other way. So anyway, we'll talk to you tomorrow on a big Thursday show at 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific. We out. Bye-bye. Peace.
You're in a 5-minute break.